Hi, Underhive scumbags. A quick amendment before we start the show. We discuss the competition again, and I say that the deadline for the competition is the 30th of September. After Michael pointed it out, it would make sense to have the end of the competition after the date that the episode releases, because otherwise you don't get much notice, seeing as it would have already closed. So the competition is actually closing on the 5th of October. So you guys have got a bit more time to complete your scenarios ready for the end of the competition. So 5th of October, email chroniclesfromtheunderhive@gmail.com and we can get all your entries together and announce a winner. Also, I spoke to Tony separate to this recording where he's edited it, and he says that he can discuss the benefits of pole arms. In this episode, I'm not 100% about them, but Tony seems to like the versatile rule. So in episode 12, we'll quickly raise that, which will be the one after this one. So this is why we have Tony for the tactics and me for the conversion stuff. I don't do much tactics. Anyway, on with the show. Welcome, Underhive scumbags, to episode 11 of Chronicles from the Underhive, a Necromunda and Post Apocalyptic podcast. I'm Tom.
I'm Michael.
And unfortunately, Aaron was unable to make it today. He rubbed himself in so much body lotion that he physically can't get off the floor. He can't get to his door handle, and he's stuck in his new house. Also, it makes it very difficult to record when he's in a new property, but his PC is at his mum and dad's house. So yesterday he told us that he is unable to attend today. So it's just me and Michael.
Yeah, bad planning. Boo for Aaron.
Yeah, and unfortunately Tony asking last night whether he can record first thing in the morning was a bit short notice for Tony, so he unfortunately couldn't join us. But today for episode 11, it's time to pull out our flamers and our holy copy of Gang War 4, because we're diving into Cawdor and the additional brutes and exotic beasts. Before we jump in, as we normally do, come join us on our Facebook group, Chronicles from the Underhive, our Instagram account at NecromundaTom, and thank you for people who have done the reviews on iTunes or other podcast apps. That's really helpful. And again, we've got the Redbubble account. I leave the link on the podcast when we post it on Facebook, so feel free to click on that at any point. But I think, should we discuss, because I know a couple of people were a little confused about the competition.
Yeah, okay.
So Michael will go through that. Before I forget, because I know I'll forget it again, the competition end is the 30th of September. I just wanted to say that now, because afterwards we'll forget to say it again. It gives us 2 more weeks if you are already scribbling down your scenarios. Also, it will allow us time to read it before episode 12, where hopefully we'll have all 4 members of the podcast for our 1 year episode 12 show. So Michael, did you want to talk about the competition?
Yeah, it's basically creating your own scenario to play Necromunda in any format that you wish, whether that's going to be a 2-player or more player setup. You can either write the scenario to suit 2D terrain, 3D terrain, or both. It's really just a case of you, we'd like you to make it easy for us, because we're lazy like that. If you can follow the Games Workshop format-ish that you can find in the Gang War books, where they sort of detail each of the sections and describe how the scenario works and how the rewards and things operate, and just basically follow that, but create your own narrative, some sort of mission to suit perhaps a piece of scenery that you've got. Like in my case, I've got my crane scenario, or if you've got a certain model collection, like I know there's a few zombie versions of Necromunda missions out in the world already, but anything you've got or even if you've got some showpiece, centerpiece model that you want to shoehorn in, so I don't know, something from 40k that you want to shoehorn in, a vehicle or something as an objective, then you can fight a game over that. You know?
Yeah, and we've got the competition all written up now, and I've marked it as an announcement on the Facebook group. So if you work better with being able to read something to know exactly what needs to be done, it's still on there. If you have any questions, please post something on that post, and Michael or I
we'll get back to you on it.
We'll get back to you. And then the email address is chroniclesfromtheunderhive@gmail.com. That's where the entries will go.
And the most important thing about that is there's a super prize.
Oh, the prize is awesome.
Yeah, it's been donated to us by Promethean Forge, and it's one of the $100 can terrain kits. So you're using drinks cans, aluminium cans, to create cylinders within the terrain, and then the rest of it is MDF construction around that.
Yeah,
and it's got a really good industrial look to it because of the cylinders. I really like it.
And the cylinders, with it being tin cans, allows it to be completely circular, which is very difficult to do just using MDF terrain, because it's just multiple flat edges to try and give an idea of a curve, whereas these are the tins, so they're properly curved.
The other thing you can do with the aluminium cans is the fact that you can damage them in some way.
Yeah, I literally just thought that I could puncture it.
Yeah, sort of puncturing holes in it and denting and stuff like that. So start raiding the rubbish bins now.
Green stuff ooze pouring out of it as well, like I did with the base of my
you can do
Morton Joe model. The blood, with the blood gore dripping down, and could do the same.
Yeah.
Oh, I want to win it now.
You can't change. You're not allowed.
My wife will enter.
I didn't put that in the rules actually, that podcasters aren't allowed to enter. So we could.
Especially Aaron.
Yeah, we could win this, you know.
I think we'd all deliberately not vote for each other as the winner, though, unfortunately.
This is true. Okay.
So we're rambling now. So that's the competition. So, like I say, it's on one of the announcements. So there's 4 announcements I think I've got on there total at the moment. So just find the right one, the one with the competition. I know there's one with all of our 4 faces where I put a picture of all 4 of us so people can have an idea of what we look like and put a face to a name.
Yep.
And there's one about the most recent podcast, and then there's one about what the Facebook page is about. But you'll see it on there. It's one of the 4 announcements. Okay, so that's... Oh, no, I've got one more thing. I'm going to be on another podcast this Wednesday recording. A podcast, Tom Fern from Dawn of Rebellion podcast. They've just started out. It's more of a generalist podcast. It's not specifically Necromunda based, but they're going to do an episode about Necromunda, and they would like me to go on it. So you might get to hear my voice in 2 different places, you lucky so-and-sos. So the Dawn of Rebellion podcast is on SoundCloud. It's on iTunes, but I can't get it on my podcast app. So they're essentially at the stage we were at the very beginning, when I was just trying to get my head around everything and trying to get everything into all of the different places that were possible. But it takes a while, so I'm glad that everyone is patient to start with, because it takes a while when when anyone's ever hosted a podcast before to start getting it everywhere. It's a bit of a learning curve, but we get there slowly.
Okay, so just as a rough idea, do we know what their podcast is sort of centred around? Is it like a 40k universe based podcast, or just a gaming in general, or specifically Necromunda?
No, it's definitely not specifically Necromunda. So the first one, technically the first one's a pilot. The second one was about Kill Team. The third one's about heresy. So a lot of it's heresy, and then there's one about 2 heresy ones, one about Titanicus and Gang War 4. So it's just kind of everything, kind of Games Workshop related.
Yeah, Games Workshop sci-fi related rather than fantasy or other games. Okay, that's cool. I'll have to give them a listen.
So, but it just takes a bit more of a hunt around. I mean, I don't have an iPhone anymore.
I'm sure we can find it.
yeah, like I say, it's on SoundCloud. I've got a feeling he said that most of the episodes are on iTunes, but you can find it. Like I say, SoundCloud's for everybody, so you can find it that way. And I'll put a link to it on the newest release of our podcast, so you can find it there too.
Cool.
Okay, that's enough waffling for the welcome. So it's going to be what we've been up to. Welcome back, everyone. We're at what we've been up to, and Michael has volunteered to go first.
Yeah, well, it's more of a coin toss, isn't it, really? Because there's only two of us.
Two of
so
us.
Are you going to go first, or am I going to go first? So I'm going to go first.
Yeah.
As always, it seems I haven't actually played any Necromunda this month, which is really disappointing, and I'm feeling really bad about that. So next month is my mission to play at least 3 games of Necromunda between this show and the next one. That is my mission. So what have I been up to? First thing I've been doing, I've bought into the Kill Team scenery stuff, which I believe I mentioned on the last show. So I've assembled all of my crates and all the servo hauler crane gubbins and bits and pieces. They've all been primed. I've not got round to starting on the proper painting on those yet, because I've still got 2 more containers to build, and I want to kind of batch paint them really and just blitz them all out in one go. Although I'm doing various colours rather than all of the crates being the same colour. But I still want to batch paint them for like doing the silver bits and doing the rusty bits and so on. So that's that. That's sort of been like a hobby based sort of thing. I did have the idea of doing a combined Kill Team and Necromunda gang using the Orlok models to fit in with like a Dockers sort of theme, just to fit my scenery. And it was going to be like Astra Militarum counts as for Kill Team, and then it's using the Orlok models. So it would be an Orlok gang, I guess, for Necromunda. But because of the variations in the weapon loadouts between what an Astra Militarum unit would have and then what a Necromunda gang would have, I'm really struggling to decide and settle on something. So I can kind of see myself doing 2 distinct things. I'll end up sort of assembling one Astra Militarum bunch of models, which will be using the Orlok models, and that will be only for use in Kill Team, and then I'll be building an Orlok gang only for use in Necromunda, unless I'm magnetised. But I really can't be bothered, to be honest.
Can IG veterans use mixed weapons like shotguns and stuff?
There are some differences, but Kill Team's is really quite restrictive compared with like Codex entries. Their options are a bit limited, which is fine for its game in itself, for Kill Team, but it doesn't quite cross over perfectly with what might be available in the sort of the IG or the Astra Militarum Codex. I'll get there in the end, and I will actually start snipping things off sprues and gluing them together, because the Orlok models are excellent. Now I've sort of had them in my hand and looking at them, I really like them.
Yeah, it's always better when you've got it in your hands, isn't it?
Yeah, obviously. You're being smutty again, stop that. And then just to continue the lulls, a couple of months ago, a bit longer than that now I suppose, I was given a tandem bicycle by one of my friends, and he was just sort of getting rid of it because he didn't want it anymore. Well, it's a long story, but I won't go into that. So he gave it to us, and I said, I will use that because I'm a fairly keen cyclist, although I haven't used my bike for 2 years or so. And then my wife, she's sort of happy to have a go and do some exercise and whatever. And we've had a couple of outings on that now, and oh my god, it's terrifying.
Is it? Yeah. I always think, because you kind of have to both lean in the same direction at the same time.
Yeah, it's really weird. I've been on the back of it when my mate owned it, just for a laugh. I was a bit drunk at a barbecue, and he said, "Oh, let's have a go on this. That'll be fun." So we went around the streets on that and had a jolly old time. But yeah, it's a bit different story being up front, being in charge of sort of steering, braking, keeping the thing upright, while you've got effectively a complete novice on the back that can't see where they're going. And that's a bit frightening, but we're kind of getting there. I think after another 3 or 4 rides, we'll be up to speed, and then we'll look like that pair off for the Carry On camping film, or whatever it is.
Well, as long as it's not more like Last of the Summer Wine, where you're shooting down the hill without any brakes.
Well, there could be
into a bush.
There could be some of that. So I think you do build up a bit of momentum on a 2-up.
Yeah, I bet. Double weight, you can shift some if you're going downhill.
Yeah, but we'll see. That's for comedy value. Just for the record, I will not be wearing any lycra.
Oh, that's a shame.
I'm just putting that out there.
Boo.
So over to you, Tom. What have you been up to?
So annoyingly, I haven't had much time at the moment to do too much of my hobby stuff. It was just a fairly hectic month, and also with I drive quite a long way now to get to work we just moved to Bedford, so it's taken an hour and a half to 2 hours sometimes to get home. And by that time, I've not really spent any time with my wife, so I have to kind of spend a bit of time with her. But I have had time to do my bits drawers, so I've got the bonus of being in Bedford is I've got a dedicated hobby room,
nice,
which is all MDF'd and lovely at the moment, and I've just started putting up some Marvel pictures and stuff, so it's really coming together. And I bought MDF paper drawers that were designed to hold A4 pieces of paper, so like they've got 8 drawers and they all hold paper. So what I've done is I've bought some plastic card and cut them into segments to separate off different areas of the drawer, and they're going to be my bits drawers, because I used to have plastic ones, which I know Trevor also uses, but they're fairly big, and they hold, it's mainly to hold things like there used to be nails and screws and stuff, that sort of thing.
Yeah, they're quite deep as well, aren't they? When you've only got like 3 or 4 little tiny bits of plastic in there, it seems like a bit of a waste of space.
Yeah. Also, it's just it's like I say, it's my whole idea of my room is to minimise the amount of stuff I have to do, and getting out all of those plastic things and then trying to work out which one's what, and then pulling the drawers out, and the plastic things are really noisy, so if I'm upstairs and the girls are asleep, I'm cracking these plastic things out. Whereas if it's a drawer, I can just slide the drawer out, they're all going to be labelled, so I know the Marines are in that one, the Blood Angels are in that one, and I can just get the bits straight away. And as I'm obsessed with converting and finding different bits anyway, it's my ideal thing, so I pushed ahead and did that first. I've still got my bounty hunters to paint. My dog, the bounty hunters, apart from the right arm and the gore and stuff, is pretty much done. I really struggled with his face. I think that's because I'm using new paints. I used the scale, I bought some scale 75 flesh colours, so I've got all the different colours, which is perfect, but they're slightly different, and I think it's when you go from one type of paint to another. I'm so used to Citadel paints, so I know how they work, I know when you add an ink to them what happens and all that sort of stuff. The scale 75, they don't, it feels like the Citadel paints go like a hard sheen and they don't absorb colour afterwards, whereas the scale 75s are a bit more pastel-y, which is kind of fine for making it look like flesh, because it helps because it's kind of pastel, but when you add an ink, it doesn't fall into I don't find it falls into the recesses in the same way. What it does is it makes the whole thing whatever colour you just inked.
Oh, it all bleeds into the paint.
Yeah, so instead of the brown dropping into the areas, it kind of does a bit but makes all of the paint brown, so you've really got to be careful where you put the ink. You can't just chuck it at the model and it drops into the recesses if you don't do too much. These ones you've got to kind of paint it in as well.
That wouldn't be any good for me. I'll just drown my models in washes.
Yeah, and that's what I'm used to, so when I then did it, it was really, and then because I had to redo the nose a few times, it looked like he'd had a nose job, like a nose extension. So I've had
He's a bounty hunter. He's probably been in a few fights and had his nose broken half a dozen times.
That's it. I think I'm getting there. It was just knowing now how those paints work, and so for the next model, it shouldn't really be an issue. But I should have really test painted. But I just assumed that all paints are the same, so just went for it. And as I always do, I always paint the main model first that I really wanted to paint, rather than doing it the other way round to motivate me to carry on. I always go, which one's the one I want to paint first? Right, I'll do that one, and then I'm like, oh, now I've got the not so great ones left to do. I should really do it the other way round. I'll always paint.
Give yourself a little treat at the end.
Yeah, I always paint the Commander before I paint the Bolter Marines and stuff like that, and it's just
and you get bored.
Always the wrong way round. Yeah, exactly. But that will be what I do this month. I will get those bounty hunters done. Unfortunately, there's only 5 of them, so it saved me a job. But that's all I've been up to as well, really. So yeah, bounty hunters will be done, and then I'm going to either start on the Van Saar or I'm going to buy a Cawdor set myself, which they're obviously discussing today, and I will hopefully start, and I'll talk about that now, what I'm planning to do with those Cawdor models. But let's get the bounty hunters out of the way first. I won't, because we're going to confirm news now, but I'm not sure it's worth doing a segment stock.
Yeah, it's not really much of a segment on account of there not being a huge amount come out, if anything.
All I've seen is the Van Saar weapons upgrades are now on pre-order.
Yep. I saw that. And also, was the reissued Genestealer Cult PDF, was that last month or was that?
No, I think you're right. I think that was just recently. So if you don't have the White Dwarf, you can now get access to the PDF download for Genestealer Cults, which is a nice touch.
It's also slightly expanded over and above what was in the White Dwarf as well. I think it's been it's been padded out a little bit more. It's not like just a straight carbon copy.
Oh, nice! And I know they've amended something to do with war. Like I say, rules aren't my thing, but I know there was some issue about war gear and something else, and it was getting a bit confusing as to what could carry how much of whatever, but that's been tidied up now. So it's really good that they're kind of keeping on top of what people are having issues with, rather than just letting it be and saying house rule it. They are making these decisions. You just have to be a little bit patient.
Yeah, well, it did cross my mind that the file that they've presented now, it looks to be of a similar quantity of what you get in the Gang War book. Like with you got your page of spiel, and the sort of background lore about the things, and all of the unit entries and stuff like that for the models and the war gear. Okay. And I think, well, how easy would that be for them at some point if they've got some other stuff to pad out a Gang War book in the future, and just have that was a Genestealer Cult focused one. Whereas when it was presented in the White Dwarf, when it was in the White Dwarf, it seemed very limited. It was literally like, you can have Genestealer Cults in your Necromunda games, and these are the stats and the points costs. Whereas now it feels like it's been fleshed out a bit more.
Oh, wicked!
Which is good.
I
think I also saw. Oh, sorry, Tom, I keep talking over you.
No, let's go for it.
I'm gonna call that satellite delay on the sound on the uplink. That's what it is.
Let's go for that.
It's not me being rude. I'm sure that I saw someone that had printed them out and then put a little sort of printed them out on the card or something, or onto thicker paper, and then they kind of slotted them into their book and just made it feel a bit more official, you know.
Well, I didn't do that with the new ones. I did that with the old ones. I cut out the Genestealer Cult stuff from the White Dwarf and then stuck it into my Gang War 2 bod.
Yeah. Just to make it feel like it belongs in there.
Yeah, it was just trying to reduce the amount of stuff I had to carry as well. Because what I was hoping to do was do that, the same with the Venator, the Bounty Hunters, and the Chaos Cultists as well, and just keep them all in one place. Yeah. Because even for this podcast now, just in case, I've got the rulebook and all of the Gang War books with me, and one of the White Dwarfs. And it's just
I do find that a bit of a challenge at the moment. I'm sort of, where I'm not playing that much, I sort of feel like, well, I've got to gather together everything because I'm not entirely sure what book the things are in that I need, you know?
Yeah, but the difficult thing is that Games Workshop would never know what I need in comparison to what
No.
you would need. So it's hard to kind of compilate it. So what I'm going to do, and I know other people have done it in the past, is I'm going to cut out all the bits that I need and know that I need, like the Goliaths and all of those, and I'm just going to bind them. I'm just going to make one big compendium once everything's all. And I'm not planning on giving up on the game. So at some point when they re-release the rules into a different way, or however they do it, I'll just bind everything up into one place, and no, I've got it. And I think
I must be. I'm a bit torn about sort of pulling a book apart to go and sort of pull segments out. I'm not sure whether I can bring myself to do it. However, having said that, my original rule book that has started to fall apart. To be honest, and given that I don't play week in week out, it's actually pretty bad. But it might just been a dodgy one.
Yeah, you might have been unlucky because mine's as new as the day it was born, but then I don't thumb through the rules as much as that you may.
But even so, I'm hardly a prolific gamer. You know, like I'm not playing sort of 4 times a week. You know, and I don't know. Anyway,
maybe you're just unlucky. That's your impetus to actually start binding it, and then I'll use you as an example. So if it works, then I'll know to do it.
Yeah, look at this crazy person who pulled his book apart.
Well, fortunately, your book pulled itself apart, so you dodged that.
I'm vindicated.
Okay, we will have a break this time because now we're going to go into the showcase, and this time it's for Cawdor. So we'll be with you in a minute. Welcome back to Cawdor. This is the showcase, so as normal, Michael's going to go first with the lore.
The men and women of House Cawdor are the bone pickers, scrap herders, and midden thieves of Necromunda. Their vast empire built upon the discarded scraps of the other clans and bound together by an unshakable faith. The house owes much of its existence to the Cult of the Redemption, a splinter sect of the imperial cult that emerged on Necromunda centuries ago. Its preachers proclaiming the doom of the Imperium and the unworthiness of mankind to all who would listen. All of the houses to entertain the Redemption's demagogues, only the rubbish peddlers of Cawdor took their message so utterly to heart, embracing their own inferiority and pledging their worthless lives to the spreading of the faith. Though faith has done little for the house's wealth, its people have endured where other houses have failed and fallen to the march of time. Now the clan is equal in size, though not in wealth or status, to several of the other clan houses combined, not least of all because Cawdor has a long history of gathering up outcasts, and many claim kidnapping the children of other clans. Devotion to the Cult of the Redemption guides the actions of all members of House Cawdor. From their first days in the Orphanarium Fanes, the snatchlings of the house are taught that the doom of the universe hangs eternally over their heads. Only by giving themselves utterly to the Emperor can their otherwise worthless lives have meaning, and only by serving the clan's word keepers will the Master of Mankind hear their faith prayers. Cawdor live segregated lives, ruled over by the Emperor's word and existing in a state of poverty extreme, even by the standards of Necromunda. Its people make their meagre wealth by scavenging through the refuse of the hive, unearthing blessed relics from amongst the rubbish. The cult teaches that material belongings are fleeting, as is the importance of the individual. Thus do Cawdor workers keep only those possessions deemed to be of spiritual significance, while they hide their faces behind masks, so that the Emperor might not think them too proud of their individuality.
Okay, the lore's done. Thank you, Michael. Kind of magical sort of adding in of lore in the past.
We'll put it down to our editor's genius.
Yeah, so hopefully Tony's put in the right bit there. and talked about Cawdor rather than one of the brutes that we've got later. Thank you, Tony, for your help. So he's not here today, but he's here in spirit and editing skills.
And workload.
Yeah. So the top 3 features of the Cawdor, I've got the robes, the scavenge weapons, and the flamey death.
Yeah, and I think they've pretty much managed to achieve that. Look, even like going from the old to the new, I think they've kind of captured that.
Yeah, they're definitely kind of fanatical. They've got the flamers. They're kind of giving themselves up for a cause. They've kind of they're at the bottom, and they know they're at the bottom, and now they're fighting for everything. Really, they're
just fighting for life.
Yeah, trying to survive.
Yeah.
So I've got in regards to the sculpts, they seem to be very similar. The weapons look a tiny bit more reclaimed, but I guess that's because that's part of the lore. I mean, it's part of their actual game style now.
Yeah, I really like the scrap look, and I think they've got it really good at the moment. I wasn't initially a great fan of like the polearm sort of weapons and stuff like that, but having seen more and more of them, and it kind of appeals to my orky side of sort of cobbling things together and making things work out of what you got. So I've kind of grown to appreciate them a bit more.
Yeah, and it's just that extra bit of separation between the gangs as well. So not just the female gang with this, or the male gang with this, or the muscly male gang with this, or the slightly older gang with this. They've all got their own style now, which is a lot cooler.
Yeah.
So that's wicked. So I've got for the game style about it being kind of all the weapons. You could go fully cheap and just give them a reclaimed auto gun or a reclaimed auto pistol and really beef up the numbers, which again, and the good thing is I find is that where you've got the options of different things, like with a massive gang, it would support with the bottle test, but then if they are all really minimalistic, and then you end up in a scenario where you can only pick 6 people.
Yeah, your fighters are going to be proportionately weaker in comparison, aren't they?
And I think sometimes where people get cross about how one gang's better than another gang, they get an idea of what sort of game that they play, whether it be in like 3D all the time or 2D all the time or whatever, and you say, well, my gang isn't any good at that, so it must mean it's rubbish.
Yeah.
And I understand that there are going to be levels, and some gangs will be a little bit better, just because that's unfortunately how things are. But you have to take it like the Goliaths will be stuck if you have a really ranged game where you have to climb up loads of ladders and stuff. Your Goliath may never even get to somewhere, and you may get shot up. But then if you end up in a game where you're doing the Zone Mortalis style, you've got them trudging up the board, hooning at you, and there's nowhere to hide. They're going to be awesome. So it swings and roundabouts a lot of the time. And it's nice to have that mixture. I think if you are going to go fully cheap and fully maximum,
it's going for like a hauled gang, isn't it? Really?
Yeah, but the more you go down a certain niche, the better it is for one thing, and the worse it is for basically everything else.
That's right. And once people work out the counter to that, then you're screwed. And when you consider that missions are chosen generally, unless you're rolling randomly for a mission, someone is choosing that mission. And if they're a bit clued up and switched on with the rules, and they take one look at your gang and think, you've got a hauled army or a hauled gang, you're not going to be any good at this mission, then they can kind of influence the game that way. So
if you're playing Tony, you'd be stuffed, because he'd work out the weakness straight away and be like, ball control, and you'd be game over.
But yeah, you are right with the scenarios where you're only getting a certain number of your fighters from your whole roster that are able to play, or a very small starting crew, and then your other guys come on as reinforcements. If that's being done at random, potentially you could end up with half a dozen Jews on the table with their reclaimed pistols, and they're going to die fairly easily because they're not armoured in any way, and they're not going to be particularly combat effective. until the
No.
rest of their brethren show up.
But in other scenarios, they'll be amazing. So it's just
Yeah, that's
like
right.
I say,
You might get your
roundabouts.
champions and your leader and your couple of other sort of tasty weapon gangers coming in, and then it'll be fine. So you've got to sort of take it in balance, I think, a lot of the time.
Yeah, and I think because I have multiple, or plan to have multiple gangs, it might be that I do deliberately do this one as a really big group of really cheap, because I haven't got the opportunity to do that anywhere else, and it might not be the most ideal build for it, but it's the only way I can do it, and so I'll make my Cawdor the bigger gang, because my Venator gang are the tiny gang, and my Goliath gang in the kind of middle.
Yeah,
So,
it's nice to see the difference, isn't it? Rather than try and make everything be equally as good.
Yeah, no, definitely. And then everyone have 8 models, and everyone have a fairly decent gun, and a fairly decent close combat, and a fairly decent this, and it just comes all samey. So it's nice to have that option, even if you don't go for it.
Another thing with the game style, which I guess kind of rolls into the our next bit, is the unique weaponry. Is that traditionally you think of the Cawdor gangs and the Redemptionists as being flame heavy. They have got flamer options, which is obviously what you want. But as with most of the heavy weapon things throughout Necromunda, is the points cost is very, very expensive when you're initially trying to justify putting them in your gang. It's kind of offset by the very cheapness of other weapons. So on balance, you can still squeeze them in and not affect the numbers in your gang. But what I do like, and we can talk about this a little later on, is the gang tactics cards. There's a number of those that allow you to distribute blaze around the place.
So I knew you'd be busting out gang tactics cards. That's why I was happy you're here. I think it'd be a good point with the game style to bring up the tactics cards. So fill your boots.
Yeah. So shall I have I'll have a flick through a few random ones. I won't go through them because there's about 12 or so. So I'll just pick some at random, and then we can have a little think about those. So we've got one here called Blessed Visions. You use that one at the start of the game after both sides have deployed. For the duration of the game, the gang's fighters may use their normal ballistic skill when making blind fire ranged attacks or ranged attacks through ductways. So that basically means that your guys can kind of hit the deck and take cover by sort of volunteering to go prone, or if you happen to be prone because you've been hit by something, and then you can shoot with no penalty whilst you're on the floor. And you've got also, with that blind fire, you've got a 360-degree fire arc, haven't you? So
how did you say it? So at the start of the first turn, does that when it works?
At the start of the game, before after both sides are deployed, and then this lasts for the whole duration of the game. So that whenever your guys are on the deck, they can still shoot without any sort of penalty.
Is going prone an action?
You can, I believe, well, I haven't got the rule book to hand, but I'm pretty sure you can choose to go prone.
So you could have one turn where everyone bombs forward one move, then prones themselves to the floor, everyone behind cover, so no one can shoot anybody, and then the next turn you can get up and move again.
Yeah.
I think it's really handy if you know you're not basically going to fire, so you can run, duck behind a cover, and then the next turn know that you're going to be able to get to the next cover. It pretty much takes you out of, or you can duck and then next turn get a fire lane out of it. I think it's quite a cool thing to add, because I've never.
It's just trying to get hidden. But okay,
I've
next
never thought
one.
of ducking.
There's bullets flying, Tom. What are you going to do? You're going to just stand there and go, shoot me?
Yeah, I stand there behind terrain and get shot.
It's all crossed my mind. I'm getting the hell out of Dodge. Okay, so next one. Let's go for Effigy of the Damned. Players at the start of any turn. Choose a terrain feature at least 6 inches in diameter or a bald tile. So depending on whether you're 3D or 2D. For the duration of this turn, any models entering or beginning their turns in the affected area must roll to see if they catch fire, just as if they've been hit by a weapon with a blaze trait.
I think Tony is subconsciously picking up that and tingling somewhere.
That's definitely an area.
Someone's talking about ball control.
Yeah, that's it. But there's no limit on where on the board you could do. You don't have like a range So it's not you setting something on fire, it's just something spontaneously combusts. So you can wait, I don't know, a couple of turns until your opponent's gang has now clustered around a particular thing, and then you go, ha-ha, look at this, you've just all caught on fire.
And does that last the whole game, did you say, or turn?
It's just for that one turn, so you've got to try and pick your moment when there's a load of models clustered around something, or either on one tile, or clustered around a terrain feature. But that could be quite devastating.
Well, you could put it, if someone's about to touch your, I can't remember what scenario it is, but the one where you've got to grab the other person's...
Oh, the relic type thing,
Yeah.
like your gang relic.
You can set that on fire just before someone gets too near it.
Yeah.
Or if you spent your time, like on a Zone Mortalis game, funneling people with like the Ambot coming one side and your whole gang coming another. They'll
Get
run up
their
the
whole
last
gang on one
corridor
tile.
left. Yeah. Well, if you funnel them into one of those places where like we talked about those dangerous terrain tiles that you had last week, sorry, we spoke about last month. You're forcing someone down one very thin, narrow walkway. Now it's also on fire.
Yeah.
Oh, mean.
And remember that most of the time you can actually choose these cards. So if you like that particular tactic just to screw your mates over, then you can just pick it every time. Obviously, they're going to get wise to it eventually.
Yeah.
But there are other ones. but it fits in with the burning sort of state of things. So I think that's good.
Cool.
Right. Okay. Next one. It's nice and simple, straightforward. Dead men walking. At the start of any end phase, so that's when you use the card. If your gang is required to take a bottle test during this end phase, it will automatically pass.
Nice.
So that's quite a key thing. If you've had a particularly bad turn, or your gang's numbers are getting down to that point where it's just you're going to kind of auto foul your morale as such, you can just say, haha, I'm going to pass that, and that's for your entire gang. So,
that's really cool.
Yeah. What we got here? Righteous Day. Play at the start of any round. For the duration of that round, all successful wound rolls made against friendly fighters must be re-rolled. So that's quite a handy way of keeping your guys alive, potentially, if they've just walked into a firefight. Or if you've got a major combat round about to happen on any given turn, then you can just say, right, now this will give my guys an extra level of protection. Also,
I think where some of these would then again benefit the people with large numbers, because if you've got like my gang of 5 bounty hunters, it's only protecting 5 people with that card. Whereas if you've got 11, say, Cawdor models, and you get murdered one turn, that's a lot of people that's supporting with just one card.
This is very true. I cannot deny that. The benefit
of numbers can benefit it benefits more than the 5 that I would benefit. You would benefit 11, sort of thing.
Yeah.
Quite cool.
We're going to go for one more, just so we don't overextend this segment too much. We'll go out with a bang. So this one's called Redemption.
Cool.
Play this when a friendly fighter is taken out of action. So you don't have to allocate this at the start of the game to one of your gangers. You can just keep it in your back pocket and then bring it out when you need it. Centre the 3-inch blast marker on the fighter that has just been taken out of action. All models under the marker count as being hit by a frag grenade. Thank you very much.
Nice.
So you have a suicide mission. You just send one that's just a suicide mission, send someone in to try and get into the thick of a clustered group of enemy gangers, and then, okay, you're going to kill me. Now see what happens.
Yeah, because it's just like the movie where someone rolls over and then you see in their thumb they've got the pin of a frag grenade.
Exactly
and then they just explode. Awesome.
So I'll go on for the burning stakes. Let's go for just one more, and we'll really be the end. So Let It Burn. So you play this at the start of any round. For the duration of this round, all ranged weapons used by friendly models gain the Blaze trait. So
the Evan rule.
So even without having flamers in your gang, you can still distribute that burning goodness all around the table. even your lowly sort of auto pistols and stuff like that, suddenly you've got the blaze trait.
Oh, there'll just be people running all over the place on fire. Aaron, pay attention. That last one turn. Not on all your shotguns.
So,
okay, awesome.
I think they're pretty cool.
Yeah, and it adds an extra bit of flavour to the game.
Yeah, I think so.
See, I still haven't bought any tactics cards, but I know that they're really cool. So I'm definitely going to buy the Goliath ones, I think.
Yeah, I've gradually been buying them for each of the gangs, even though I might not have been buying the actual gangs themselves. I just wanted to get the tactics cards, because out of the pack, I don't know what you got, 20 cards maybe. In this one, there's like 12 which are specifically for Cawdor, and then the rest of the pack is generic ones that anyone can use. Yeah. So it just gives you more and more little surprises or little gimmicks or something just to jazz up your game so they don't get stale.
Oh, that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. Okay, we'll go on to unique weapons then. So they've got quite a few little unique bits. So I'll start with the pole-armed equipment. Yep. So they're often with auto guns or blunderbusses. They count as 2 weapons, as in how many that a model can carry.
Yep.
And they only have the unwieldy trait in combat, not in the firing. So it won't affect your firing being unwieldy, just your combat. It gives you the 2-inch reach because it's versatile. So you can kind of do a shooting attack sort of thing with the reach if someone's slightly too far away. It's strength +1 when you're attacking, unwieldy. It denies, unfortunately, it denies you making a potential additional attack. I found the polearm, I'll talk about the blunderbuss after, but the polearm I'm not myself, I mean other people may find it helpful, but because it's unwieldy, you lose the extra attack. I would rather myself give them an autogun and axe, which is cheaper, or give them an autogun, an axe, and an auto pistol for the same amount, which costs the same as a polearm with an auto gun, and it would allow me then, when I charge, to have the extra attack. I think it's mainly because I can't really use versatile very well. I think there might be other people who know exactly how to use the polearm weapon much better than I do, and will see the benefits of it. But I can't, because I don't know. I'm not a great fan of the kind of 2-inch kind of shot you essentially do with it if you're not in hand to hand.
Yeah, it's like a sort of sweeping attack, isn't it? I guess that's probably what it's representing, rather than it actually being the gun firing.
And it's an extra option. And like I say, there's probably more skilled people who can actually do something decent with it. And if there's a model in the way and you're good at being able to move the models in a certain way that guy can't get hit because there's other people in the way and he can just reach over with the pot. It makes fluff sense and everything else. Because it's like a long weapon, it's obviously unwieldy because the weight's at the top. It all makes complete sense. I'm just not tactical enough to use it properly, so I would definitely go with an auto gun, an axe, and an auto pistol for the same sort of cost.
Yeah.
The time I would use a polearm is for the blunderbuss though, because I think that's really cool.
And templates.
Yeah, templates. So the different shots. So you've got grape shot, which is template. It's strength 2. It's got the scatter shot rule, so if you are hit, if shots hit by this make D6 wounds rather than 1. So that can cause a lot of mess. I mean, it is strength 2, but doing enough wounds, that could be pretty horrible.
Yeah, and just remember, it's a dice game, so from time to time you can spike them dice and just roll really hot, and then it'll just be, whoa, what the hell happened there?
So because I'm just trying to get my head around the actual rule of scatter shot. It says if hit, the shots make D6 wounds instead of 1. Does that mean hits, or does that mean, was this like the situation I spoke to Andy before, where he said that no, it means wounds? So basically it's a template, so auto hits.
Yeah.
Then is it that if you then get wounded by the strength 2, it then counts as D6 wounds, so that means that it's extra damage? I'm not quite 100% on how D6 wounds works.
No, I'm not. I don't have the rules to hand.
What I might do is I might send that message to Andy again and just get a clarification in on the next episode. I'll discuss what's been suggested on how it works, because what I would see it as, like, you say you have 3 models under it, they all get hit once, it's strength 2, so you've got the potential of wounding them or not. But then does D6 wounds mean that they take D6 lots of strength 2 and then they all do 1 damage, or that you get hit by strength 2 but there's a potential of it being D6 lots of strength 2, and then from there you work out the damage? So it's just trying to work that bit out myself. There's probably
once you've got it down, then it'd be alright.
There's probably stacks of listeners going, oh, this is clearly this, but
these people don't know what they're talking about.
Yeah. I mean, instead of asking Andy, I could just, when I do the podcast, feel free to just write a post underneath when I release the episode, just saying, "You idiot, it's clearly like this," and then you can explain it to me. So anyone can help me. That'd be great. Next one's Purgation Shot. So this is a bit more flamery. So this is template again, strength 3, and it's got the Blaze special rule.
So everything.
Yeah, I mean, as we've talked about Blaze quite a lot, I'll just talk about the special rule quickly. So after the attack has been resolved, roll a d6. On a 4+, they catch fire and also suffer a strength 3, AP -1, D1 hit, and they run around on fire essentially. So there's rules for how to run around, how to be put out, and all of that sort of stuff. But essentially it just gives you 2 opportunities to kill somebody. And
so you've got the strength of the weapon in the first place to try and do some damage, and then if that doesn't do any damage, then hopefully later in the turn you've got the opportunity of the burning doing some damage.
And also, if it doesn't actually kill the person, it means that they're out of action essentially anyway, because they're running around all over the place. And then if you're dedicating another model to try and help put them out, that's 2 people that you've dealt with that aren't doing something else. So that's really cool. Causes a lot of nuisance. Emperor's Wrath, which sounds pretty cool. So that's got an 8 to 12 inch range, so that's not a template one. It's strength 4, AP -1, damage 2, knockback, and pulverize. So pulverize I've not seen very often. So after making an injury roll, you can roll d6. If it's higher than the toughness, a flesh wound can be changed to a serious injury, which is fairly cool. Yeah. So you're more likely to knock them properly down to the floor, which would mean you've got more potential to coup de grace them and other sorts of bits and pieces, and it also means it just takes longer for them to get up. So that could be quite helpful. It's just that extra chance to thump them to the floor.
Yeah, I like it.
Next, you have the Chain Glaive, which is essentially just a massive chain sword on a stick.
Yeah.
Again, it's versatile, so it's got a 2 inch reach. It's -1 to hit in close combat. It's strength +2 low, AP +2, -2, and 2 damage. So if you do clonk someone with it, it's going to be pretty horrible, but it's harder to do so, essentially. Yeah. Again, it makes sense. You've got a giant heavy chainsword on the end of a stick. It's not particularly it will be unwieldy, but if you do catch someone with it, it's going to cause a lot of pain.
Certainly.
Something that has been very popular with a lot of people is the long rifle. So the short range is up to 24 and the long range is up to 48. So it's a fairly, again, long rifle. So
it's basically the whole board, provided you've got line of sight. That's the whole board, isn't it?
Yeah, so it's got a +1 to hit at long range as well, which is cool. So if you can keep them between 24 and 48, you've got +1 to hit. It's strength 4, so it's pretty strong. AP -1, and it's got knockback. Cool. So you've got the potential to knock people at range. I would use mine, I think, to just keep going for their long range stuff. Try and knock down their heavy weapon or something along those lines.
Yeah, and it's not too bad a cost either, really. It's only 30 credits, when you compare that with a regular auto gun, yeah, polearm auto gun is 20, and even a reclaimed auto gun is 10. But obviously you suffer the effects of it being reclaimed. But 30 doesn't seem too sad for that amount of range. The positive modifier for long range shots. Okay, a lot of the time an enemy gang is going to be within 24 inches, so you're not always going to benefit from that +1 to hit. But it's strength 4, which is decent when you think that the majority of the gangs, most of the time, your enemy gangers are going to be within 24 inches, so you're not going to get that +1 to hit all the time. But certainly in the early stages of a game, if you've got some nice shots lined up, or you manage to get your guy in a decent position, then that +1 is certainly going to help you. And then the strength 4, bearing in mind that the majority of gangers, barring all the hangers-on and stuff, are toughness 3. Strength 4 is pretty damn powerful, isn't it, really?
Yeah. Looking at the rules for the roster, it looks like in regards to special weapons, you only get to use one special weapon to start with, but then after that, any ganger you add can be a specialist as well. So it looks like you can just keep, once you've had your first game, keep buying additional long rifles.
Well, in theory, though, your champion and your leaders, or your leader and your champions can have those as well, because they've got no weapon restrictions, have they?
That's very true. So you can have a fair amount.
So you could have 4 of those to start with. It's going to push up the points cost of your models, but then if you're not throwing in an almost 200 point heavy weapon, then you can afford to splash out some long rifles. And you just kind of have a scrap dealing sniping gang and just try and play that, and then maybe send all the ruffians and the Jews into the fray whilst your big guys hang at the back taking pot shots.
Yeah, no, it's definitely cool. I think I'd definitely run it as a gang with 2 different tasks, one being laying down fire and another being running up close and spraying templates everywhere.
Yeah, and also when you if we skip the heavy crossbow for now and go straight to the bomb rat, if you are splitting your gang in that way, then the ones that are running forward, they can have bomb rats and stuff.
So let's start with the bomb rat then, before the heavy crossbow. One question I have is, what grenade do they use? Because it just says grenade and bomb. It doesn't. I couldn't see where it says what grenade it is that explodes.
That's a good point. I would guess it would be frag, but if it's not been stipulated,
I might be wrong, but I've looked a few times. I looked at the bomb rat description. I looked at the equipment list, and I looked at the weapons and war gear thingy, and I can't find.
Oh, right, okay. So it's actually in the fluff description. Really, it's not really a grenade of any specific type, because it gives you the modifiers for hitting, and then it tells you what it does when the grenade goes off.
Is there different options for strength then?
Yeah. Go off. Oh, no.
Yeah, it says go off and dud, but I can't see what the strength is.
Yeah, it's a good point.
Okay, as long as it's not just me.
No.
It's fine. I'll put a question mark to that, and I might ask Andy that as well, unless he gets bored of me asking him questions.
He'll change his email address, you know.
Oh, I bet.
He'll go straight into his spam folder.
Yeah. Ignore Chronicles from the Underhive. Right, I'll message him. So that was the only bit I was unsure of, is how it blows up. Because if it's a frag grenade, absolutely fine. I think with a bomb rat myself, it's too many rules for my brain to take, and my brain can only handle you either throw it this far or you shoot it this far. I mean, other people way more game orientated than me would be able to run with a bomb rat and be like, yep, I can.
No, you run away from a bomb rat. You don't run with the bomb rat. You run away.
No, but it's because it then does random stuff after that, and it's just it's when one rule leads my brain into another rule, which might go into another rule. It throws me, and it won't for other people. So, like I say, some people are loving the idea of Bomb Rat, and if any of them can explain it to me in an easier way, then I might use them too.
Yeah. No, I like the idea of it, and I think the conversion possibilities of those, I think, is pretty good, and I'm sure we can talk about that later.
Yeah, we've got the conversion corner coming up.
Yeah.
I'll go to the heavy crossbow now then, because that's the last range weapon.
Yep.
So the heavy crossbow I like. It's short range is 15 and its long range is 30. It's like a frag strength 4 blast, 5-inch blast, so nice and big.
That's huge.
Yeah, it's knocked back and unwieldy, which is fair enough. So you can't run and fire with it.
Yep.
Or you can do the frag, which is strength 6, AP -2, and 2 damage. So it's fits in between a grenade launcher and a missile launcher, essentially.
Yeah, you've got your versatility for choosing whatever target you're going to be shooting at. If you're shooting at a load of just little guys that are clustered fairly close together, then you're obviously going to choose frag. And if you're going for shooting at a big brute or an enemy leader or something like that, then you want to go for the maximum damage possibilities of the high strength.
But that frag, strength 4, is
it's still
quite
good,
a
yeah.
beefy thing. And 5-inch blast, it means that you can deliberately aim it at the floor, which you can see clearly, rather than trying to go for the minus modifier of hitting the actual target. And because it's 5 inches, whereas a 3-inch one, if you're kind of missing the person deliberately to try and be more likely to hit, you're only going to get a couple of guys. But with a 5-inch blast, if they're clustered, that's going to cause a hell of a bit of damage.
Yeah.
So I think they're really cool. I'm definitely going to get one in my gang. Just because they look awesome as well. Like, every other thing's a gun. This is just a makeshift crossbow that launches a grenade. It's awesome.
Why wouldn't you?
Yeah, so I think they're really cool. The last thing, which isn't really a weapon, it's the cult icon. So it's a leader or champ. And again, it's very similar to the others. It's just +1 activation. So on your leader, you'd get an extra 1, or your champion, you'd get an extra 1. So helpful if you're going to do like 2 separate groups. So you can have one group where essentially all of the people in that group could fire all their stuff in one go. So you can activate everybody and just do everything all in one turn. So if you need to link a couple of things, like one person needs to throw a grenade, then another person needs to do something else. It just allows you to
cult icon
control.
The cult icon's a piece of equipment rather than a weapon. So it's not going to restrict you from what other things that person can carry, from what I can gather.
I don't know, but I'm not sure if it affects like the amount of things it can hold in its hands for, say, hand-to-hand combat.
Yeah, there's nothing there about it. Although it's physically large on the model, like, it actually looks like it's a substantial thing to carry around. It comes under equipment rather than weapons. So I reckon you can have that, and you can fully load up your guy with 3 things.
Yeah, it doesn't say that you can't, and it doesn't say it affects the amount of hand-to-hand weapons you can hold. So maybe they drop it.
So if you've got the spare points, then potentially your hold gang can all of a sudden activate lots more models all at once.
Yeah. So quite a lot of stuff there to pick from. The skill tree. So this one is slightly different to some of the others, where the leader and champ have different primaries than the gangers. So they both got combat. So the leader, the champ, and the gangers all have combat. But where the champion and the leader have brawn as their another primary, the gangers have ferocity as their primary, and the leaders and champs have ferocity as their secondary. I'm not sure I've noticed that in any of the others. I think this is the first gang where the leader and the champ have a slightly different primary to that of the ganger. I might be wrong.
I do feel that the skills that they've or they're allowed to pick from, like those categories. I think they really fit the theme of the scavenging sort of scrappy fighting type of warriors that you'd expect to see. The only thing I found a little bit quirky when I was trying to make up my gang list is that you want to try and take advantage of any bonus weapon skills or ballistic skills and stuff like that. The champions have got a better ballistic skill than the fighters, than your leader. So you want to imagine that you're going to load the champions up with ranged weaponry rather than close combat weaponry. But all of the skills that they've got are sort of combat orientated. So I was a little bit torn when I was trying to build the game to think, do I lose that ability with the ballistic skill and then have them more combat focused to make better use of the skill? You know, it was a bit tricky.
Yeah, and I think I'd read that somewhere as well. I think that would be the only time where the polearm might actually be, where I might actually find that helpful, is that where you're reaching, you're using your ballistic skill rather than your weapon skill.
Yeah.
So having the slightly higher ballistic skill might help if you're going to put one on a champion.
Yeah, and then you've still got something to bludgeon people in combat with.
But then if you put the blunderbuss on them, then the ballistic skill becomes redundant again for the shooting because it's a template. Yeah, it was a difficult one. I struggled a little bit with that.
I'm glad I wasn't the only one.
Talking about our rosters, that's the next bit. So
excellent.
Should we? We'll have a quick break before, and then we'll go into rosters before we go into conversion corner. So we'll have a bit break, and I'm going to fire up my phone and get my list. So we'll be with you in a sec. Welcome back, guys. We're at the roster point. Michael's going to go first with his list, and we'll see how similar our lists are or how different they are.
Okay, right. So, I'm starting off basically. I'm trying to go for like a horde army, gang. To try and take advantage of the cheap weaponry and everything else. So, starting off with my leader, I've given him a double-handed axe. That decision was more down to the model that I've got available, because I created a Cawdor gang when Necromunda was re-released. So that's what I've given one of my guys, and that's what I'm going to have. So he's got a double-handed axe.
Just that Executioner model could do that as well, the new one that we've seen pictures of.
I also gave him a stub gun, so that he's got a pistol weapon, and I paid for him to have dum-dum rounds for that gun.
Cool.
Then skill-wise, I gave him ball charge, so that gives him, I believe, increased strength when he charges.
Okay.
So that will make his double-handed axe a bit more effective on that initial round of combat. So that's the hope. So he's basically going to be a crazed lunatic running across the table.
Sweet.
The first champion, I put 2 in the gang to try and maximise post-game sort of advantage or sort of benefits. So the first one, I gave him a long rifle, which we discussed earlier as being a pretty tasty weapon. Cool. I also gave him a knife as well. They're fairly expensive for a combat weapon. There's cheaper options, but with the backstab rule and everything else, I think it's worth a punt at 30 points. And I gave him the headbutt skill. So although he's only got one combat weapon, he hasn't got a pistol or anything like that. He's got the headbutt ability, which gives him effectively an additional type of close combat attack, so he can just muller his opponents. And then the second champion, I couldn't resist not putting a heavy weapon in the gang, so I went for the heavy stubber just because it was one of the cheaper options. I was really torn because I wanted the heavy flamer, but I just couldn't justify paying, I think, 195 credits. It just
also struggle with the whole heavy flamer unwieldy thing, because
bulging biceps
doesn't affect thingy, does it?
Yeah, but I can get around that with the skill that I gave him. I gave him bulging biceps.
So it doesn't work on the weapon. Sorry, I was talking about the heavy flamer.
Yeah,
Because
I'm talking
bulging
about.
biceps doesn't work on range weapons now.
Doesn't it?
No.
Oh,
Yeah,
you know
this
what?
is. Sorry, dude.
Oh
It
well.
only works now. It only works on hand-to-hand weapons. So
Okay.
any unwieldy weapon still, unfortunately, has to stay still, which is what makes heavy flamers quite complicated way of making them work. If you see what I mean.
Okay. So what I'm going to do now, then, I'm going to say this is future-proofing this gang member by the fact that when I've got some credits, I'm going to load him up with a super special close combat weapon. That's
Oh, cool.
my.
Or you
but
can you can give the I know you can get ways around it. Like there's that stabilizing piece of war gear that
yeah,
allows
yeah,
you
that's
to
right.
move unwieldy weapons and stuff. So there's ways around it, but yeah, it's difficult.
Yeah, fair enough. It was more because of what we said earlier about there not being any shooting type skills or benefits. Obviously, because perhaps they're not designed to be a shooting gang. You know,
Mm.
maybe they're meant to be in the thick of it, scrapping around. But hell, he's got a heavy weapon. He wants to have something that's going to help him. In his case, nothing. So I also gave him a knife because assuming that someone's going to want to try and snipe him and come and get stuck in eventually. And then followed that up with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 gangers, and I gave them all reclaimed auto guns,
Cool.
just to keep them as cheap as I could, and also bearing in mind the models that I've got available, which we'll talk in the conversion corner afterwards. And then rounding off the gang, I've got myself 3 Juves, and I've armed all 3 of those with reclaimed auto pistols and an axe, basically as the cheapest weapon options they can have. So the idea with this gang, I'll include some bomb delivery rats as well because I had the points, but I don't know if I have to allocate that to a particular model or not. But
I'm pretty sure you do.
yeah, in which case I will just give that to whoever. So yeah, the idea is that my leader champion can go headlong, running into the fray, and then hopefully giving the additional activations to any gangers or juves that are surrounding him. And then a couple of champions are kind of hanging back because they're like the fire support. So we've got a heavy stubber just sitting there plinking away with his -1 to hit at long range. Boo. And then the long rifle, which is pretty tasty on a relatively small table. So that's pretty much that.
Sweet. So there's me.
Yeah.
Okay, I've got my list. So I'll start with the leader. He starts with a stub gun, like yours did with Dum Dum rounds, and I've just given him an axe, and I'm giving him Overseer. Mainly because out of all the leaders, they're probably the least equipped out of any leader, and giving him the Overseer skill allows me to double up someone like my champion who's next, who has the heavy crossbow.
Right.
So I've given him the heavy crossbow and an auto pistol in case he just needs to fire something if the ammo roll goes badly. So with Overseer, the leader will then allow the crossbowman to fire twice. And what I'm hoping to do as well is when I have a couple of gangers in the future with long rifles, I can then make that into a sort of dedicated shooting part of my gang, like we've said about splitting the 2 up.
Yeah.
So one of my things is the leader and the champion with the heavy crossbow. I have one ganger who has the long rifle as their specialist weapon, and then like I say, I hope to increase that in the future. I have one more champion, they're more combat orientated, so they've got a flail and an auto pistol. So that one's definitely the one who's leading the kind of second part. And I think if I have 20 points left over, when I get enough credits, I'll probably give them the icon as well, so they can group activate a few people in one go. So if I can send one person off to knock someone down, the next activation will be someone then to coup de grace the person. So they're the leader and one champion in one group, and then the other champions in the other group. So like I say, I've got a ganger with a long rifle. He's got a stub gun as well in case his bullets dry out. And then after that, I've got a ganger with a pole arm, but with a blunderbuss, so he'll be part of the running up close gang.
Yeah.
And then I've got 4 gangers, like I discussed with the pole arm before. All these gangers are actually armed with auto guns, an axe, and a stud gun. So they've got their range, they've got their close combat, and they can get an extra attack when they charge. So they should come with 3 attacks. So hopefully I'm trying to reduce the amount of times where people just get stuck in combat for like 3 or 4 turns. Hopefully if I can get in combat, get it out of the way, 3 attacks, then I'm more likely to wound, I'm more likely to cause damage, and hopefully just quickly deal with that round before going somewhere else.
Yeah, sounds good.
So I haven't got a huge gang. I mean, it's still pretty big in comparison, because technically I've given every ganger a long distance weapon, a pistol, and a close combat weapon.
So how many models did you end up getting with that? Sorry.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
Yeah. Okay.
Which is still not bad, because if you get most gangs and you tool them up with a basic weapon, a pistol, and a hand-to-hand, you probably wouldn't get 9 models.
Yeah.
And then from then on, my gangers, I'll probably look to do one with a long rifle, one with really basic, one with a long rifle, one with really basic. So I wanted these guys to have like the 3 weapons, but my next lot of gangers might not necessarily have a pistol and a hand-to-hand combat weapon. The next ones might just be fodder. So these ones will just have just 1 weapon, and they'll be the one at the front out of say 2. One will have the axe and all of the pistols and bits, and then the other one will just be the new guy that they've shoved up the front to take the bullets, sort of thing.
Yeah.
So I thought I'll tool them up now, and then go from there afterwards with the others, and see how it takes me. And again, 2 champions means that you've got more chance of getting money or rare weapons and stuff. So that's my game.
Nice.
No pole arms apart from the blunderbuss.
Yeah, I'm really tempted to. I need to
really
rehash. Cool. Yeah, I need to rehash my gang from the initial one that I've done from the PDF. So I'm looking forward.
The legacy rule one.
Yeah, I'm looking to sort of dig those out of the garage, and then I'm going to dust them off, because I'm really quite excited about the Cawdor. I think it was one of the games that I really enjoyed in years gone by. So it's not necessarily my go-to gang, but I've got a certain affinity with them, I think. So I should be rehashing them, and they'll be the one that I'll play with, rather than the Count as Goliath, like my Orc models.
Yeah, I think the mass sort of cultist loons are your sort of go-to. They've been your go-to with 40k as well.
Yeah, I think it's the hold, or the potential hold aspect of it as well.
Yeah.
Is that all of the armies I play in 40k are essentially hold armies, and I've never really leaned towards elite forces. No, I just like to have huge numbers of models. So if I can get this, well, I just rejigged my list, taking away that heavy stubber, and by swapping that out for another long rifle, because I like those now. We've had a good chat about them. I can squeeze in an extra ganger and an extra juve. So I've now got a starting gang of 14 models. When you consider that most of the gang is trash, like the gangers aren't going to be up to much with their slightly dodgy weapon, and the juves aren't going to be up to much with their slightly dodgy weaponry. But hopefully, if you can bumble through a couple of games and start getting some better equipment onto models, then it'd be interesting to see where it goes.
Yeah, definitely. And I forgot to say, looking at in regards to the skills, the champion with I didn't look at the close combat one, but the champion with the crossbow, I'm probably thinking of Iron Jaw, because it's one of the only combat sort of skills that is more of a protection thing than it is
a damage dealing thing.
So it hang on, let me just go back to double checking what it said. So Iron Jaw, the toughness is treated as 2 higher when someone makes an unarmed attack against them, which again, unfortunately, unarmed doesn't happen very often, so I might have to still look again. But yeah, you're right about the difficulty of making them range, but also their skills being combat. But I'll find a way around it.
Yeah,
I always do. And anyway, I like the crossbow, so regardless of if it's good or not, I'm still putting it in there. So that's the roster. So I think it's time for Conversion Corner. So when we get into it, I'll be discussing the models. Michael has the links too, so he knows what we're talking about. And then also, I'll put every single link that we discuss. I've got them all ready. So whenever I post the podcast, every link for each of the models that we discuss will be on there. So you can listen along and also click on the links to see what we're talking about whilst we're talking about it. So hopefully it'll be a bit more interactive for you, so you'll know what we're talking about. Okay, we'll have a break and we'll be at Conversion Corner. Okay, welcome to Conversion Corner. We're going to discuss different ways that you can make the Cawdor models. The Cawdor models are pretty awesome, so this would be in a way to how would you increase the amount of models. So you don't want to buy 2 packs of Cawdor because they would look very similar by the end of it. So what could you do if you wanted to buy 1 pack, and then there's some other options. So we'll start off with Frostgrave, which is a sort of AOS-y sort of style models. They're cultists. They look very Cawdor. Another company called North Star Figures create a sci-fi pack that connects with the Frostgrave cultist stuff to bring them into 40k. So if you're looking at bolstering up the ranks, a set of the squad and a set of the sci-fi pack would be a good way to start.
Yeah, I like the heads on that North Star figures with the because a lot of them have got like respirators and rebreathers and things like that, and I think they look really good.
Yeah, and also
I can see other uses for other gangs or other sort of conversions.
And I think that was the idea of my bit straws as well, is that everything feeds into everything, and little bits here and there can really change the theme of a model. It just like, I want to make a hive scum model as a hired gun. Well, I can use the dilapidated body parts of a Cawdor model for its base and go from there. So it's just little bits here and there that you can use. And like I say, I'm going to put all the links on the Facebook page, so you will see what I mean. When you're listening to the podcast, you can then click on the links and see what we're talking about at the time. Some more non-GW stuff. Heresy Miniatures create a squad called the Dark Brethren. Again, it's very culty, and then you just have to 40k up some of the weapons. And another one from Shield of Wolf Miniatures are called the Death Deceivers. Again, it's just another set, just lots of different potential models that you can use.
Yeah, it's just adding some variety to the gang. If you are going to end up with 20 models or something, you don't have too much duplication.
Yeah, and the whole idea is with this one is that you use quite a high gang amount, so it's probably the way to go.
Yeah. As for the Games Workshop sort of options, if you need to be keeping it Games Workshop legal, either for like playing in store or if you're playing in sort of Games Workshop sanctioned events and stuff, short of the actual genuine Cawdor models, the only other cultists that would kind of fit in are the Games Workshop Chaos Space Marine cultists. But unfortunately, they're not available in like the sort of the options that you'd like, because originally when they came out with Dark Vengeance, you had a couple of leader type models. You had one guy that was like a sorceress combat master with his axe, and then you had another guy with his shotgun and his sword, along with then a number, maybe 4 or 5 different sculpts of guys with guns,
Also
and
guns
then
and stuff,
another auto guns, and then another 4 sculpts where they had a combat blade and a pistol. You know, but now the only cultist that they're selling is just one small sprue that's got 5 cultists on, so those other sculpts are just not available. unless you're looking down the second-hand route.
Yeah.
So
it's good to always have the options of other things then. I mean, it is difficult.
Yeah, definitely.
If you're purely trying to go GW only, but you can use the fatigue legs of an Cadian Imperial Guard model as the kind of camo legs that you can dirty up yourself.
Yeah, they kind of work, and I guess with green stuff you can always, depending on how good you are at sculpting and stuff, you've only got to put some hoods and stuff onto other models, and then make some sort of pointy hoods, or maybe bandages, like make some strips of green stuff that you can wrap around sort of legs or arms to make them look a bit more ragtag.
In regards to the bandages, I saw another cool way. So green stuff would probably be what I would have done. But there's people have been using paper, cutting thin strips of paper, and then dipping them in gluey water mix, and then wrapping that round, and then that dries hard to look like a bandage, and it seems like it'd be a bit more controllable than the green stuff.
I've also seen people using elastic bands, which you wouldn't think would take paint, but they seem to with some success. It was one of the guys that works for Mini Wargaming. They've got like a little guy who does the modelling side of things. His job isn't to make videos. His job is to assemble the models, do some conversions, and paint loads of stuff so they can then use it in their battle reports and stuff.
Oh, cool!
And he was discussing some conversions that he was doing for some orc model. Admittedly, it was a very chunky, large scale model rather than a regular boy size model. It was like a Gazgul Thracker sort of size, big jumbo brute model, and he was saying that he used elastic bands for that, and he'd managed to paint them. How durable that will be, I don't know, because
I'd also worry about it twanging and snapping my model into pieces.
Yeah, you'd imagine that over time that elastic is going to sort of stretch and contract, and flex, and then it's going to start cracking the paint. But it seemed to work for him, so that might be worth a try.
Yeah, so if someone else wants to try that, feel free and show me. I'm not going to be brave enough, I don't think. I think I'd put the elastic under too much stress and then snap the model into pieces. But also, talking about heads, if you are looking for cultist heads and you're not fancying the green stuffing the hoods into points, Puppets War, I'll put a link on that as well. I haven't got it on the show notes. But Puppets War, I've got a set myself for my Cawdor gang that I plan to do. They've got hooded sets of heads that look perfect for the Cawdor models. So if you did want, even if it was the GW models and you have two models the same but you wanted to change the head, Puppets War have a good set. And it's just, and like I say, I'll put the link up. But that'll be a nice, easy way that you don't have to muck about with green stuff. Because I always struggle. I always think doing a pointy hood on a model would be quite easy because essentially you're just doing a cone. But it's a lot more complicated than I imagined it was going to be. I've green stuff lots of complicated stuff, but the hoods I always struggle with. Not sure why.
You think you'd kind of get away with it being not perfect because it's supposed to be fabric. So the fact that you haven't got it perfectly smooth and flat shouldn't matter if it's got a few kinks and bumps in it.
No, it just doesn't. I can't get it to look natural. I can't get it to look like a hood. They look more like the cone heads from that old TV show. If you're young, you probably have no idea what we're talking about.
That's a reference that most of our viewers just going to not know.
Yeah, if you're less than 30, you probably don't know what we're on about.
Yeah. Best.
Okay, so again, Conversion Corner, we are going to post the links up. If you have any links to anything cool, please add them to the podcast as well. I obviously can't scale the internet for everything, so if you know of other stuff, please put them on there. Because it'd be good for me as well to see what other options I can have when I make my gang. Oh, that reminds me, it then is what I'm going to talk about. So, annoyingly, they've added a bit of fluff to the Cawdor gang, which is where they spoke about female Cawdor gangs.
Yeah.
And that's where I'm going to go with my Conversion Corner. So thank you for whoever wrote that bit of fluff, because I wasn't planning to do a Cawdor gang straight away. But now I've seen that, I want to do an all-female one. And basically they base their theme on the Sisters of Battle, which are also hopefully very soon coming out as well. And I've just seen a headset of female models which are planning to release very shortly. That would look awesome on my Cawdor models. So thank you for whoever it is that's decided to make me spend a lot of money. All it took was one little bit of rules that I read saying that there were all female Cawdor models, and it's like, oh, thanks for that. And it's based on the Sisters of Battle, and they're just coming out with new stuff, and they released the preview of what their heads would look like, the headset. I was like, oh, that's going to look really good on the Cawdor models. And all I've got to do is dirty them up a little bit. It's like, oh, you buggers. But yeah, so that's what I'm going to do with my conversions. So you'll see, and I'll chuck a few other Sisters of Battle bits on there, just to separate them ever so slightly from the Cawdor models that are there. But that also mean I'll probably add a bit more blunderbusses and flamery stuff, because again, the Cawdor models obviously base themselves a bit more on the custodes, whereas the Sisters are very flamery, so I'll have to go a bit more whole hog with that. So thank you, Games Workshop. Thanks for making me spend more money, but that just jumped into my head. Making me poor. Yeah. So that's it for Conversion Corner. Well, for the Cawdor, we're going to go into the Brutes now. So stay tuned, and we're in for the next half. Okay, welcome back. We're now in time for this showcase. So it's time for the rest of the Brutes. So we're going to start first with the Escher one, which is either a Chimerix, a Chimerix, a Chimerix. You'll probably hear Michael call it something else, so we're going to do the lore for that.
House Escher, Chimerix. House Escher has a long and somewhat shadowy history in dealing with off-world life forms, that they make extensive use of strange and exotic creatures to fuel their pharmaceutical production, and the fact that it provides the raw materials for their outlandish costumes appears to be a fortuitous byproduct. Alien life comes the house's way legally through sanctioned trade and with the noble houses of the upper spires, and long-standing contracts and permits allow House Escher ready access to the segmentum's most illustrious pedigree beast breeders. For every legally obtained shipment of alien fauna the house takes delivery of, however, there is another clandestine shipment inbound to their laboratories as well. House Escher has long been suspected of importing creatures through more illicit means, and the coming into frequent possession of life forms prohibited throughout the Imperium for all manner of reasons, ranging from ferocity to uncontrollable reproductive rates. The laboratories of House Escher do not shy from such dangers, however, and strive ceaselessly to create new and ever more potent drugs and elixirs from whatever biological source they can procure. That House Escher runs a dark and hidden trade in the creation of new life from the creatures they deal in. Gene-spliced hybrids, flesh-fused chimera, and other darker fusions of different species are commonly created. Provided that House Escher continues to avoid the use of intelligent Xenos life in their experimentation, the Imperial House continues to turn a blind eye. And so these dumb monstrosities are produced and sold to the gladiatoriums to entertain the crowds, kept as attack beasts to guard and protect Escher holdings, and quite often make their way into the ranks of particularly well-renowned Escher gangs, where they add considerably to the status of the leaders and champions.
Okay, thank you, Michael. So that's the lore. The cost of the model, let's go through this first. So it's 220 credits, it's got 6-inch movement, it's got 4+ weapon skill and ballistic skill, it's strength 4, toughness 5, wings 3, initiative 3+, 3 attacks, and it's got chemical breath. It comes with chemical breath and talons as its weapons to start with. So we'll go into the weapons that it has. Chemical breath. It's strength 2, damage 1. It's a template, so Michael's favourite. It has toxin, which I quite like, which is the thing that knocks out my Goliaths. Roll 2d6, and the target who gets hit rolls a d6 and adds a toughness. If it's the target's higher, it's fine. If it's equal, they're seriously injured, and if it's higher, they go out of action, which is pretty horrible when it works, especially with high wounds Goliath models and stuff. And if you can get this on someone else's brute, and they're unlucky enough with the dice rolls, you can take them out first turn. So I find toxin pretty horrible. I actually think it's worse. I mean, technically worse. It's more horrible than what the other option is, which you can add to, which is gaseous breath. So I'll go into that one. So gaseous breath is something that you can actually pay extra for. It's a template again, and it has the gas rule. So you roll a d6, and then if it's higher than the toughness or a natural 6, an injury roll is made regardless of the wounds. See, I find toxin worse than gas.
Yeah, well, the fact that you've got that chance of taking something out of action straight away, obviously you've got the lower strength. I think that's the difference, isn't it? Is that you're relying on that strength versus toughness thing in the first place to actually do the...
But toxin doesn't really take into account the strength at all. You both roll a d6. The attacker rolls 2d6 and the defender rolls a d6 and adds a toughness. Right. The actual toughness of the toxin I don't actually think counts, which is why I might be wrong, but I find that toxin with a potential to take them out entirely is more deadly than the ability to take an injury rude regardless of the amount of wounds they have.
Yeah, there's more so now because there are a lot more models with multiple wounds. Like before, it was just either a champion or a leader, which obviously they're important key pieces for your opponent. But now, if they're investing heavily in brutes or other hangers-on that have got multiple wounds or bounty hunters or something, then the potential of one-shotting them, you've got to get lucky and spike your dice, obviously, but it's that potential that could be game-changing.
I mean, this one, in a way, it means that if you get a 6, they're going to take an injury roll regardless. So they could have 8 wounds, and they're still going to take an injury roll, which means they've got a chance to then go out of action or a serious injury. So it's still quite strong. But I just think the ability to take someone out just because you've rolled slightly higher is pretty hefty. But the other one, the other add-on, I think is definitely worth it. So you've got talons, which they come with, which is strength as the user. So that would be hitting with strength 4.
Yeah.
It's got AP -1 and 2 damage, so that's pretty hefty. But the razor sharp claws are +1 strength, so you're hitting at strength 5, AP -2 and 2 damage, and also have rending. So on a roll of a 6, they also do an additional damage. So that's pretty horrible. So like 3 attacks base, 4 attacks on the charge. That's going to be pretty horrible with strength 5, AP -2, so it's getting through most armour. And then it also has the potential to do 3 damage if you roll a 6 rather than 2 damage each hit. So I think they're pretty horrible. I'd put the claws on, I think.
Yeah, it's going to bump up the cost of the model, isn't it? Obviously, because if you're choosing to take any of those upgrades, but you also get the option of taking some armour as well, which is quite nice.
Yeah, so that's one of the options, and they also have skills as well that they come with. So they can regenerate. They can regenerate a wound. Sorry, they can regenerate if a weapon causing the damage does not have blaze. On a 4+, they regenerate a wound. So even if they have a horrible turn, if they're not in combat for the next couple of turns, they can regenerate wounds. So that's pretty cool. And it also has crushing blow. So can it see this? And this was a bit confusing as well. So can exchange one of its attack dice for an additional strength +1 and damage +1. why would you can exchange? Why would you never not always do that?
Because you'd be having one less attack, wouldn't you? So you can basically choose to have one less attack, but the remaining attacks that you do make are going to be at a higher strength, doing more damage.
Oh, I see. That's what it means. I thought it said you can exchange one of its attacks for one of these attacks, which is +1 strength and +1 damage. So what it's actually doing is taking away one of your attacks entirely. So say you had 4 on the charge, you take away one of those attacks, but the other 3 attacks are +1 strength and +1 damage. Is that what it means?
Well, going by your notes on our show notes, yes, but let's have a quick look in the book.
So I thought it just meant you can change one of its attacks for attack that now does an extra +1 strength.
Oh no! What it is so you make your decision before you attack, and then regardless of how many attacks you're making, one of those dice can be nominated as a crushing blow. And then that particular attack is going to be at higher strength and higher damage.
So why would
so basically why would you not do it?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's fine, and I'm happy that they've got that extra. So one, say you change the colour of one dice, and that dice is even more mean, which is fine. But I wouldn't not ever do that unless I was trying not to kill the thing. But yeah. Okay. So
I guess all they've done really is they've tried to rationalise the stat line for the weapon options on the model. So rather than having an additional weapon option that you think, oh, I'm going to do 1 attack with this and I'll do 3 with that, you just say, well, you still roll your dice, but one of those is going to count as something slightly special.
Yeah, because I think it's where I remember old games where you used to change in all of your attacks for one big attack, and that was called a crushing blow. And I think that's what's thrown me. But yeah, just having an extra strength and damage on one of your attacks, why not? I'd do that.
Yeah, you just do it every time, wouldn't you?
Yeah. So next we'll go into the Goliath Zerka, and Michael's going to be doing the lore for that now.
The members of House Goliath are notorious for their gene-enhancing and biomanipulation of their physical forms to monstrous levels. Many Goliath infants are vat-grown, the better to ensure a healthy specimen, whilst others are born of Goliath parents deemed suitable to reproduce if they adhere to the Goliath physical ideal. Whatever the infant's origin, from an early age, House Goliath utilises all manner of artificial assistance to boost its members' abilities to superhuman levels, be it through the use of combat stims or other more esoteric drugs brokered through the dealings with House Escher, or the genetic manipulation of their young, up to and including the surgical grafting of huge volumes of extra muscle mass. There are almost no limits to which the members of House Goliath will not go in their pursuit of what they deem to be the physical ideal. Indeed, this manipulation of their form has gone on for so many centuries that there are those within the Administratum and the Adeptus Mechanicus that believe many of House Goliath have evolved to become a distinct subset of abhuman unique to Necromunda. This is quite alarming, considering that gene enhancement and vat-grown muscle grafting is common across the Imperium, and speaks volumes about the levels to which Goliath have taken these practices. Such abuse of growth stims, surgeries, and other methods is not without risks. However, as ever, the most baseline of Goliaths will show noticeable reductions in cognitive function. For Goliaths that push the limits of their physical form to the extreme, the risks are even greater. Rampant and uncontrollable muscle growth, spontaneous bone spur mutations, metabolisms that rage out of control, and total loss of all higher brain functions are common. Such post-human flesh hulks are frequently seen in the gangs of the Underhive, where, in the crude parlance of the gangs, they are called Zerkas, bringing rampant destruction to the foes of their house.
Okay, thank you, Michael. So the cost for this one is 210 credits. He has a movement of 4, a weapon skill of 3+. His ballistic skill I didn't really put on there because I don't think it's that great. I don't think it'll be useful very much.
6+ it is.
Okay. Yeah. Strength 6, toughness 5, wind 3, initiative 5 plus 3 attacks. It comes with 2 open fists. So open fists I always see it as a back slap or a slap around the face. But open fist, strength is user, so it's coming at strength 6, AP -1 and 1 damage with knockback. Or you could pay for mutated fists, which has the versatile rule, so it's got a 2-inch range extra. It's strength +1, so they're hitting at strength 7, AP -2, 2 damage. It's got knockback, and it's got the pulverize rule, which we've discussed before. So you can, it's more likely to make one of the wounds serious injury. It's also got the versatile rule, obviously, because it's got that range. And it's got the option of extra armour, and it's also got the option of a stim stash to beef him up even more. So, just an incredibly strong Goliath lunatic, really.
I love the look of the model. I think it's, certainly from the artwork alone, it's just fantastic. I think if I was, I don't know, 30 years younger, I would have been just drooling over that picture all day long. It's just fantastic. It's just a great big hulking Frankenstein looking brute.
He's definitely taken too much at one point.
Yeah.
His skills, again, obviously, drugs, combat drug stash, so why not add more drugs? When used...
Drugs are bad, kids.
Yeah, don't become a Zerker. When used, he can make an additional D3 attacks. So he'd be coming in at, plus D3 attacks. So you could be coming in at 6 attacks. If it rolls a 1, then he actually reduces the attack by 1. So you'd come in with 2. But you have the potential of coming in with 6 attacks, maybe 7 on the charge as well. So he's going to cause a lot of a mess if you can roll high. And he's impetuous, so he can consolidate 4 inches rather than 2. So he's coming at you quick.
Coming at you, bro.
Yeah, once you're in combat, if there's a group of them and you're not distanced apart well enough, it's going to be very messy if you're unlucky enough to be in his range. But with a 4-inch move, hopefully you can keep away. That's it for the Zerker, unless you have anything.
No, I don't have anything to add. Not until we get to the conversion corner, I guess.
Conversion bit's going to be perfect. There's loads I've got today. The Orlok Lugger. So Michael's going to do the lore for this.
Common across all the worlds of the Imperium, servitors are melds of flesh and machine, most often human flesh, but sometimes, in the case of the Ambot, alien life forms slaved to a servitor engine. Most often, the human component of a servitor is harvested from a convicted criminal, one whose crimes are deemed too great to allow them to carry on as part of the Imperial Society, but who may continue to serve in another form rather than be wasted in incarceration or execution. Servitors possess the most rudimentary of human intelligence, their minds scrubbed of past memories and all but the most essential knowledge. Artificial memory engrams grafted in their place so that they will know their designated role and function and little else. Servitors are put to work in all manner of industry and for any menial task with which an unmodified human cannot be trusted. They work in hostile environments, their living flesh variously blasted to extremes of heat and cold, eroded by extreme elements, or withered and wasted by toxic surroundings, performing their tasks until they fail, at which point their mechanics are reclaimed and a new human donor is grafted into place. Orlok has ready access to mining and heavy industry servitors of all makes and manner, but those repurposed for gang warfare often take the form referred to by the gangers as luggers, heavy tracked units able to lift, move and carry bulky cargoes. Be they liberated from mine workings or cargo depots, such constructs are well suited to a combat role with minimal reprogramming.
Okay, thank you, Michael. The cost, 230 credits. Movement 4, weapon skill 5+, ballistic skill is 4+, strength 5, toughness 5, wounds 3, initiative 5+, 2 attacks. He comes with a harpoon launcher and light carapace armour. So we'll go through all the weapons that he can take. So he can come with the harpoon launcher, which is strength 2+. The short range is 2+. If you shoot within 6 inches.
Yeah.
He's got 5 strength, AP -3, so that will get through some armour. Damage 1, and it can drag, which essentially means it pulls people closer, and it can impale if there's someone else standing behind. The heavy bolter, which you don't see very often, is long distance 36 inches, strength plus, short range is +1, so if it's within 18 inches you get +1 to hit. Strength 5, AP -2, damage 2, rapid fire 2. So pretty horrible heavy weapon. He can come with a heavy flamer, which is one way of getting heavy flamers moving around the board. So he's strength 5, AP -2, damage 1, template and blaze. It's a pretty horrible weapon. Cause a lot of damage. He can come with a heavy stubber, strength 4, AP -1, rapid fire 2 again. And you can give him heavy carapace armor for 20 credits. And you can give him a mono sight. So if you stand still and aim, it's a 2+ rather than a 1+. So you can keep him out of the way and beef up his shooting, or you can have him as a mobile, come along with you, and firing heavy flamers all over the place.
Yeah, I think that's the loadout I sort of like. I like the idea of him just being a flaming, rolling robot. I think that's just fun. Just trundle him up. He's obviously going to go very slow. That's the only downside is his movement is only 4.
Yeah.
So that's going to be very limited in that regard. But in principle, that's what I would like to do with him. In reality, I would probably be giving him something with longer range, I guess.
I mean, he has a weapons platform, so his skills allow. So weapons platform allows unwieldy attacks to be a basic action rather than a double action. So he can move and shoot.
Yeah.
And he can aim and shoot. So you can add another +1. Especially with the mono sight. So it means that with aiming you get +1, which means he's got to be as a 3+ essentially, and then with the mono sight it means it's a 2+. So if you're wanting to go a shooting platform way, you can either move and shoot, or you can aim. It just allows you to make it a lot more reliable. So you can have 2 options. You can either get on close and heavy flame, or you can keep back and plink. It also has the ammo hopper rule, so re-roll failed ammo checks that roll a natural 1.
Yeah.
So you're less likely to run out of the bullets. And also with Orlocks, you're more likely to, with their skills, to have re-rolls on that as well. And also ammo jacks and bits and pieces. So you could get a fairly reliable heavy weapons platform using the Orlock Lugger.
Yeah, I think I'll be leaning probably towards the heavy bolter. I think in reality, I would like to put the flamer on it, because I like the idea. But even with that moving and being able to shoot, the 4-inch move means he's going to struggle to get places, I think. So with that in mind, I think the heavy bolter, with its damage output and sort of its heavy negative AP, I think that would probably be my choice of weapon over the heavy stubber. It's more expensive. But
you don't get heavy bolt as much though. I'd probably do it just for that.
Yeah. So I quite like it for that, and the fact that you've got that re-rolling for your ammo checks, because your ammo checks are 6+, so you're going to struggle when you run out of ammo on that.
But you only re-roll if you roll a 1 though.
Yeah, that's right.
But with other
if you've got other things, if you've got other things within your gang that can help that as well, like you say, you can make him relatively reliable.
Yeah, and there's obviously tactics cards and bits and pieces that are your favourite. So there is a way of making him. I wouldn't say I wouldn't use him. I think I would probably, if I was using all locks, I'd probably try and wangle one in my gang at some point. Yeah. I'd also just build the model just for the sake of it. So even if I didn't have him,
you can have a lot of fun with that model, I think.
Okay, so after the Orc Lugger is the Vansar. You can help me with the pronunciation.
Arachnirig.
Arachnirig, thank you. So now you'll hopefully hear Michael using the same name for the lore bit, so I'll leave him for that.
Servo rigs are effectively a mechanical exoskeleton, most commonly seen in heavy industry, where workers may be equipped with them to aid with lifting and moving heavy materials or operating large tools or machinery. Anywhere where weights not normally manageable by baseline humans must be handled. but where duties cannot readily be entrusted to abhumans or servitors. Where most servo rigs are worn over the body and limbs, controlled by the wearer's physical movements and granting extra strength to their limbs, servo rigs are often also utilised to give a worker extra limbs, greatly increasing its dexterity and the range of tasks that can be performed, making what may otherwise be the work of many the work of few. Such a rig may be plugged directly into the wearer's nervous system and controlled directly, or may be automated, forcing a worker to keep up with the pre-programmed movements of the rig into which they are strapped. SAR makes particular use of such things, in no small part due to the physical deficiencies common within their house. Very advanced forms of servo harness, controlled by the wearer's nervous system or via a direct MIU, are common. Advanced artisan pieces that put to shame the simple utilitarian forms mass-produced and seen in wide use. In battle, it is not uncommon to see Vansar fighters wearing massive rigs that grant them a huge, spider-like appearance, with many mechanical limbs that greatly increase the combat efficiency of the gang as a whole.
Okay, thanks, Michael. It's weird because Michael's done the recording separately, so I'm thanking Michael for something he's done already. So hopefully Tony is effortlessly editing in each of the lore bits each time.
Seamlessly.
We've got a super team. Michael reads ahead and Tony puts it in afterwards. It's awesome.
And Aaron turns up late. Or not at all.
Or not at all. Mr. Reliable. I was going to put that on his... I think that's why I did laid back to his description on the podcast thingy. But he'll be in for the 12th episode. He won't be in for the year celebration.
What we do, if we start abusing him towards the end of the podcast, and then we'll be able to check whether he's actually listening or not.
And also, because he's not editing, it means I can get away with a lot more. Whereas before, because he was editing, he could take stuff out, whereas he can't now.
If only we thought about that earlier.
Yeah.
But moving on.
Yeah, it just means I can't insult Tony now.
Obviously, why would we?
Yeah, so going back to the rig, he's 240 credits. It's weapon skill 4+, ballistic skill 4+, strength 5, toughness 5, wounds 3. Sorry, toughness 4, wounds 3, initiative 4+, 4 attacks. It comes with twin link las carbines and 4 servo arms, and light carapace armor. So the twin link las carbines are maximum range 30 inches, strength 4, damage 1, rapid fire 3. So they fire a lot of shots.
Yep.
And they're slightly more beefed up than a las gun. It can also come with a rad gun, which is strength 3, AP -2, damage 1, and it has rad phage. So if inflicted by this, if damage inflicted by this suffers an additional flesh wound. Sorry. Yeah, if it's damaged by this, they suffer, and it's a template weapon. So it just adds a different way to use this rig. You can use the plasma gun. Obviously, we know the 2 profiles for that, so I won't go into that. And the servo arm is a 3-inch range, so it's a versatile thing again, and it's strength as user. Each of those arms can be replaced by the weapon, so you could give it a couple of rad guns, you can give it a couple of plasma guns. It could be a really nasty rig because you can replace quite a few of the servo arms, especially with the skills that come with it as well. So twin link las carbines, the special rule for that, reroll ammo dice. So, but you have to take the record's second result. So even if it's crappy, you still have to take it. So if you've rolled 3 ones, or you've rolled a couple of jams, you can re-roll the ammo dice. So I thought that was really cool. So you can really make sure you lay down quite a bit of fire for that.
Yeah, I think it's worth the risk with that. I think if you did roll the 1, rather than being thankful that you didn't get a jam, I think because the ammo check is only a 4+, so it's like a 50-50 chance that you're going to run out of ammo. I think it's worthwhile taking that dice roll just to see whether you can get an additional shot, and so run the risk of getting that jam.
So is where it says re-roll the ammo dice, is the ammo dice the amount of shots you fire, or okay? So if you roll a jam on your first rolls,
Yep, you can re-roll that.
you can re-roll that.
Yep.
So if you're rolling any jams, it's worth doing it just for that sake.
Yep, definitely. And even if you've got ones, you think, well, do you want to push your luck? Obviously, it depends on what your other dice are.
Mm.
But I'd be tempted with an ammo check of 4+. I'd certainly be tempted to push my luck on that.
Yeah, especially if you've got extra weapons as well. So if you do actually end up jamming something,
yeah,
if you've got a couple of plasma guns attached to yourself as well, it's not the end of the world. They're immune to rad weapons because they've got Vansar protective gear, so they don't suffer from rad weapons themselves. And they have a superior weapons array. They can make 2 shooting attacks each turn. These can be made by different weapons at different targets. So you can, if you've got multiple weapons, you can fire them in different places. So
it's what you want to do.
Yeah, fire your las carbines at one place, fire your plasma guns somewhere else. It also means if someone's coming in close, you can fire your red phage gun at someone, deal with that issue, but also still fire a long range shot, which is what you wanted to do anyway if that other person hadn't come at you.
Yeah.
It's very cool. I think it's really, and it's allowed a lot of people to convert. I've seen some really cool conversions of these as well, but we'll go into that later. But all of these brutes I could use.
Yeah.
I'm not 100%
the other interesting thing with that shooting twice, or that being able to do that, is that because you don't declare all of your shooting attacks at once like you do in sort of 40k or Age of Sigmar and stuff, where you choose all your weapons and then what you're going to shoot at. You basically say, right, I'm going to spend one action to do a basic action, shoot my gun. So, like you said, you shoot at that nearest guy that is the main threat, hope to take him out. If you don't take him out, then you've got a second attempt with your other gun to take him out. If you do take him out, you've then got the option of shooting at the next furthest away target. So you've got that flexibility because you don't have to declare your shots before you've seen what the result is.
Yeah, and also it also allowed you, if you did take a rad phage gun and a plasma gun, it means that you don't have to necessarily fire them as a second time. If someone's close, you could fire your twin-linked heavy las carbine twice, which would mean that rapid fire 3 2 times, with the ability to re-roll the amount of shots that you have as well. That's a very nasty weapon.
Yeah.
I mean, technically, I have no idea whether the cost's too high because I don't play enough to know the positives and negatives. But the actual units themselves, I think, are really cool.
Well, I think by the time you're hiring brutes and stuff into your gangs, your gang's already at a certain level anyway, where you've got a decent amount in your stash, and the rest of your gang has leveled up sufficiently to complement them. Because otherwise, if you put this into a starting gang, you'll end up with like 3 models. You'll have a leader, a champion, 2 gangers, just to keep yourself on your ganger quotient sort of legal, and then throw one of these in, and that's your 1,000 points.
Yeah, but
so
cool.
all of a sudden, everyone is going to be a bullet magnet, isn't he? So
true.
Everyone's just going to go for that. But once people are leveling up and you've got a relatively substantial and powerful gang, slotting one of these in, it's more for fun than anything, because you've got that centerpiece, haven't you?
Yeah, I think these are all really awesome. So the last one then, last but not least, which I actually forgot to add to the notes, and even though we're talking about the Cawdor, is the Styx Shambler. So we will do the lore for that now.
Preachers and rabble-rousers of the devout of House Cawdor have little tolerance for the mutant and the abhuman. Such deformities of the body are clear evidence, so their leaders tell them, of the corruption that lurks within the soul. How can anyone who lives their life in loyalty to the Emperor, who dedicates their every action to his glory, their every moment of toil to the betterment of his Imperium, ever become so corrupt and debased to form? Physical abnormalities are clear evidence, then, that these afflicted have turned their gaze away from his light and shunned him as their one true master, and so the devout of House Cawdor will hunt them down and exterminate such affronts to him on earth with great prejudice, wherever they attempt to hide from his light. Exemptions not only exist within the teeming ranks of House Cawdor, but could even be called common. Many denizens of Cawdor are lame of body or weak of wit. Many are abnormally large or strangely proportioned and peculiar to behold. How it is that such variation from the accepted baseline norm of humanity can be tolerated within a house that claims to despise such variations is something of a mystery. But to Cawdor themselves, the answer is simply one of faith. If their leaders choose to allow these souls to live, then live they will, just like any other Cawdor, dedicating their lives to the holy cause. A common sight amongst the peoples of House Cawdor is that of the physically frail and the weak of mind coexisting, working together to do for one another that which they cannot do alone. Sometimes regarded as bearers of stigma, sometimes called Stigs, amongst the gangs of House Cawdor, never mutants, lest the speaker wish to provoke a violent reaction. These combinations of shambling, slack-jawed behemoth and shrewd yet wizened rider can be a great asset to any Cawdor gang seeking to establish dominance in the Underhive. Truly, House Cawdor is home to some strange sights indeed.
Okay, thanks again, Michael. So I'm thanking you for past stuff again. So the Stig Shambler, 240, movement 4, weapon skill 4+, ballistic skill 4+, strength 5, toughness 4, 4 wounds, so it takes, I suppose it's got 2 models essentially. Initiative 4+, 2 attacks, and it comes with a club and a heavy stubber. So the club, strength as user, 2 damage, it's nice and simple. Strength 5, 2 damage, 2 attacks.
Yep.
It can swap the club for a polearm. So that would be strength +1, damage 1. So it's less damage and it's versatile and unwieldy. I probably wouldn't bother, but it's up to you guys, so feel free. The heavy stubber, again we've discussed, strength 4, AP -1, rapid fire 2, unwieldy. It can replace the heavy stubber with a twin linked heavy stubber. So essentially the same profile, but it has 2 damage rather than 1 damage, and it's rapid fire 3. So that could make a mess. Or you can give it the heavy flamer. So strength 5, AP -2, D1 damage, and blaze with template. So the potential to everyone just run around on fire. So the skills, it comes with intelligent control. So reroll failed leadership, failed call checks, failed willpower checks, and failed intelligence tests. So you've got the smart guy on top telling. So I thought that was quite cool, especially with the possibility of being able to pick, more likely to be able to pick who you're going to fire at. So you can fire at people further away or closer or whatever. So that gives you a bit of control. And the call check, meaning that you're not going to run away if someone dies in front of you and all that sort of stuff. I think that makes it a bit more reliable. Again, like some of the others, it can move and shoot, but it has a -1 to hit if it does so, which again, if you give it the heavy flamer, isn't the end of the world. If you give it the twin linked heavy stubber, it gives you the skill of being able to re-roll the ammo dice like the other one.
Yeah.
But again, you have to accept the result. So you can either go, just keep it basic with heavy stubber, keep it with give it twin linked heavy stubber, which gives you the 3 dice and you can re-roll, or heavy flamer, which allows you again to move and shoot around, but you won't suffer from the -1 to hit. So I thought that was pretty cool, and it gives you the opportunity. It makes it look a bit like Master Blaster, big guy carrying a little guy, who's it makes it feel a bit orky to me as well, where you've got a big guy and then a little Gretchen on top doing something.
Yeah, you have a little grot on there.
That's it. Doing
I like this one. This one sort of appeals to me quite a lot. I like that.
Yeah. So, which will lead into our conversion corner. So, we'll have a break and then we're going to get into the fun bit. Because none of these models are out and people are wanting to make them, what can we use? So, we'll have a quick break and then we'll get back into conversion corner. Okay, welcome back. It's Conversion Corner for the Brutes now, which is one that I've been looking forward to because currently there's no models, so it allows you to just go nuts. So we'll start with the Chimerix, whatever you want to call her, or it. So essentially, fairly large, chaosy sort of brutey beast thing with multiple legs. So
yeah, I think the interesting thing for this, before you actually start that, is that although they've given us some artwork for it, the description in the lore or the fluff with it doesn't specifically say what it is.
No.
You know, so you can literally go hog wild on this one.
Oh, 100%.
Because they're intimating that Escher are just experimenting and collecting and gathering creatures from all over the place, legally and illegally. So you can just go completely mental. Any creature that has got some sort of claws or got something that looks like it breathes, so it can breathe fire or toxin or whatever it is, you can just use that. I think it's great.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, it could be anything. So I've gone for sort of beastie models. So start with Games Workshop. You can go for the Flesh Hounds. So Hounds of Khorne, essentially. It can be a base to start from. Puppets War. Again, these are the guys who do the Cawdor heads. They've got quite a lot of stuff, but they essentially released their own sort of Flesh Hounds as well. There's two different sorts. So there's one that's just a Flesh Hound, and one that comes with it's a slightly more special character one with two heads. The links, like I say, will be in the podcast. So that's just a fleshy beast, but it looks a bit more genetic, less fur. So I thought that was quite cool. And Cad Wallen miniatures. I think they made one that I see best as one of these models. It's a mix of. It looks like a mix of different beasts. The link's on there. When I've shown this on a different group before, on Necromunda Worldwide, I think it might have been. When you click on it, it tells you that the site's unsecured. So you can click on it at your own risk. But I think it essentially says that if you're trying to buy it, it's not an encrypted. It's not got the padlock thing. So I think it's essentially saying that you're buying at your own risk. So I've looked at the website and I've not had any issues, but I just wanted to warn you before you click on.
How's your bank balance lately, Tom?
It's still low, but that was my doing. So like I say, click on the link. It might give you the warning, but when I've read it, it looks like it's only giving you a warning about purchases. So have a look and see what I mean. You can also just type the model type into Google and it will show the image of it. So whatever way you want to see the picture, but I think that one is the best one for what I would want to do, and that would be the model that I would want to use for it.
I think for me, what I'm going to end up doing, I envisage these creatures being furry or feathery because of the way that the Escher gangers like to decorate themselves.
Yeah.
So ideally you want something that's got fur, something that's got feathers. That would be the sort of thing you'd imagine appeals to them. However, I've got an overabundance of Tyranid bits and pieces.
Yes.
So, and there's nothing to suggest that they wouldn't tinker around with Tyranid stuff if they could lay their hands on it.
Of course, lick the claws and all those bits and pieces.
So I can see myself building something from Tyranid bits. It won't be a traditional Tyranid creature because it's going to be an amalgamation of whatever I've got.
Hound and nids and stuff.
But I think I'm going to go down that route and then maybe try and get some feathers. If you look at other models like the lizard men models in fantasy,
I was just about to say the Saurus stuff.
They've got lots of feathers and stuff. So if any of the bit sellers have got that sort of stuff in their stock, or maybe I might have to buy a handful of lizard men or something and then just snap all the feathers off.
The old Kroot as well. The old Kroot, the bulkier ones, when they released the line of models, if you wanted to go full on.
Yeah.
Because their thing was they took on the genetics of the thing they ate, so some of them looked a bit more orky, and they were used as weapon platforms. But I think and that gives you the weapons platform as well. So that might be the way to go.
Yeah, that could work.
Oh,
The other way of
going
getting
now.
the other way of getting the fur will be just with these two new bits that I plan to use. Is if I just put a thin layer of green stuff in different places, it's pretty easy to texture the green stuff surface like by stippling to try and create a fur that I can dry brush, because that's all I'll be doing with the painting side of things. It'll be sort of whatever colours and then dry brushed to pick out the raised areas, and I reckon that could work.
Well, to make your life even easier, and you know that I'm obsessed with random hobby stuff, bits to buy, Green Stuff World, who make the cable maker, also make a fur maker. So it's basically a textured plate that you, like Play-Doh essentially, you're pressing the green stuff into, and then when you pull it away, it's textured fur. So that would make life really easy. And then you just stick it to the model and then cut away what you don't need.
I might have to give their website a bit of a look.
Oh man, I'd lose £400 on Green Stuff World if I had the money.
You was worried about that other website losing money out your bank?
Yeah, no, but this would be me legitimately doing it myself. The bank would ring me up and be like, "You appear to have bought 6 texture rollers and extra large cable maker," and no, that's me. But they make loads and loads of cool stuff where you can muck about with green stuff and do lots of different things. So definitely
need to have a proper look on their website then.
And Green Stuff World was one of the places at Salute that I couldn't get to because it was always full of people. So it's a foreign company.
Yeah.
So you have to pay the delivery, but if you've got a bulk of stuff that you want, you can get bits on eBay as well. But because they've got an eBay store. But Green Stuff World, I love it. I love their stuff. But yeah, so
you've sold it to me.
Yeah, at least have a look at the website and then see what potentially you could lose your money on.
I don't have any trouble with that.
Next up is the Zerka. So again, it's fairly easy, just a huge muscly model. So I've got a list of different places where I found models that would be perfect. So a company called Hungry Troll, they have a range called Nuke Wars. So that's a very, very big Zerka sized model. So I'm just going to click on it and then I can try and explain to you what it is. So this one, my phone is not zoned properly for it.
Well, while Tom's struggling, my take on these is that it literally is Frankenstein, and it's just some guy that's just overdosed in drugs and stuff, and everything that's swollen, and so it's almost like the Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, or was it Mr. Hyde and Dr. Jekyll from the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen?
Yeah.
Or am I getting that confused with the comedy show?
No, it's
League of Gentlemen.
No, you're right first time, and it's also in the new Mummy film.
Yeah.
Hungry. I'm going to have to go via Google while Hungry Troll. Stupid phone. The website isn't very good at mobile phones, so I'm going to go.
So while Tom's still blundering, my approach to that model, I like the artwork in the book, so that's one model I might be tempted to actually buy. But if I was converting something, I might start with a Skaven Storm themed, because they're very much similar in the mentality of how they're built or constructed, where they're just an amalgamation of parts all thrown together and then injected with chemicals and magic. So you've got all those glass vial things sticking out their backs and things. The only problem you've got with fitting that in to make it look right within the Goliath gang is going to be the fur. So you're going to have to try and file down that fur to make it smooth and appear skin or muscle like. So that would take some work.
Found it.
Well done.
Thank you for filling. So,
round of applause for Tom.
Now I've seen them, it's all jumped into my head again. So Hungry Troll make a thing called Nuke Wars, and they've basically released models that look a lot like Goliath models, but with a lot of but the scale is slightly too big. So people have wanted to use these as Goliaths, but their scale is larger. It's larger than 28mm, which then brings it into Zerka territory. So these guys, a lot of them are actually holding weapons, so they're not going to be ideal for the Zerka model. So they're big, they're Goliaths that are Zerka size, but because they're holding weapons, they're more your champion sort of stuff. But there are some models. One's holding a giant pole attached to the end of that pole is a giant engine. So
Nice.
It looks like it's swinging a huge engine at somebody, which would be something that I would count as being okay. And there's another one who's carrying a giant sort of makeshift piece of scenery as a shield, but kind of coming at you at full pace, and in his other hand is just essentially a bare fist. So both of those I could see as being okay as used as Zerkers, because they're clearly not using a weapon, they're just essentially using their own body strength. In regards to Games Workshop-y stuff, I know that I've used the Talos Paint Engine for quite a bit of stuff. So the upper body of a Talos Paint Engine would work fine. It also comes with vials, so you've already got the drug bits. It also allows you to have the opportunity of using mutated fists and bits and pieces.
It's quite expensive model though, isn't it? The
yeah.
Talos Paint Engine, because I don't know, have they got a plastic version yet?
Yeah,
the old ones were metal.
I've definitely used a plastic version for my Chaos Cultists, my Chaos Spawn, for where I've done a Khorne Demon King army. So I've still got loads of bits left over. But if you bought one of them, it would allow you to split. I mean, I buy kits now not for the model themselves, but what they can give to other stuff. So where it might be expensive to buy it just for that one conversion, if I know that there's stacks of bits in there that will allow me to convert a ton of other stuff, then I'm happy to pay the amount. So I've never used the Talos Pen Engine as an Talos, but
you can justify it to yourself any way you wish.
Exactly. But like I say, it's got all that. So even if you went onto Bits company sites and just bought the little vials that kind of press into their back and stuff, there's that. So
well, that thing can also do double duty for the Arachne rig for Van Sar,
exactly.
Can't it?
Yeah, so you'll be able to pull stuff. Yeah, for that. There's the Games Workshop, which is what I would pair it with. The Vargeist, which are
the big hulking vampire-y type things.
Vampire-y things. So yeah, a mix of their legs and bits and pieces. They're a good size. They're fairly muscly, but they would.
It also matches the fluff as well, because in the sort of fluff description, they're saying that the drugs that they're injecting sort of grows bone and spiky bits sort of coming out of the skin.
The mutated fists and stuff. Yeah.
So you can get all of that on that kit. It's a good call out.
So just pull, and again I know that because I used them for my Chaos Spawn. So it's just about pulling different bits from different places, and that's why I want my bit straws and all fully set up. So each of the kits now, from when I buy them, like I think Trevor does essentially, it's not about what one model you can make from that thing, but what's the potential of all the other bits in the future, which is handy because it's the kind of way that Games Workshop do stuff now, where there's tons and tons of options under one model. So it just allows me extra stuff to muck about with other models.
What about with those Vargeist? What about the heads? Because they're going to be a bit more animalistic, aren't they, rather than human?
Yeah, so
I can't remember off the top of my head.
So I'd probably take the head off and use that maybe for the head of any beast or mutant model, or maybe even the head of the Chimerics. Well, I'm saying that wrong again. The Chimerics or whatever, but it just, I wouldn't use that head at all, but I'd use it for something else in the future.
Yeah.
That's essentially what I'd do. I'd store that for another day for another model and be like, oh yeah, I've got that head somewhere. And then.
But then what would you put in its place to get something that looks
I would
human?
Use the Goliath model. I'd use the Goliath head.
So it'd be like a pinhead on a big muscly body.
Yeah, and I think that's what the actual picture looks like as well. It's just like the head's normal, but the or if not, Mad Robot do. There's a lot of companies now that do mohawked heads. So even if you've run out of Goliath heads and you just need one, there are companies now that do mohawked heads. So just grab one of them, whack that on there. I'll just use a normal human head just to really emphasise the size of what that person's done to their body.
Yeah.
It looked a bit like, and again, things like a Bane model from Batman or Killer Croc or anything, any hulking mass that you have. Each of those, like Bane, when he's in his full beefed up toxin mode, has a small head but a huge body. I think that just really emphasises the size of what they've done to themselves.
Yeah.
I've added a couple more actually, which weren't on the version that I sent you.
Okay.
So War Machine, and this is because I saw some people who've done the versions on different Necromunda sites. So War Machine and Hordes have a model called a Spylix. No, there you go, Spylix Warden. But it's essentially again a huge muscly dude. I know that Gamesworks people have used, and I know they've used them for the champions a lot of the time, or the leader. But the Blood Bowl ogre, the one that's sprinting at people, so that can be used. And Guild Ball, I've seen a really cool version of this on, I think I think he's posted it on a few places. Guild Ball is a model called a Catalyst, or the model that this person's used, which is the Veteran Catalyst, which is a newer model.
Right.
But those models are awesome. They're huge behemouthy Zerka models, and I'll post both of them on as well. But essentially, you just put a Goliath's head on one of them, and it looks awesome. So they're possible models. But that's it for the Goliath one. Plenty of options. Just pick which one you fancy. Or you could just go like normal, like I did with an Ogren or an Ogre, and just do a collection of that sort of stuff. But if you wanted to go proper big, insane muscles, then yeah, the Guild Ball Catalyst would be the way to go. That's it for the Zerka. So for the Lugger, that one's fairly easy, I think. The Lugger's kind of like just a servitor. So
yeah, it just sort of it's like anything robotic. You could have it, although they describe it as having tracks and stuff. There's no reason why you can't have it on robotic legs. It's just what it is, isn't it? As long as it's big and chunky.
Yeah, but the you can get tracks from quite a few places these days.
Yeah.
And then the servitor model. I mean, I made all my servitors for my Inquisitor retinue with cultist models. You just hack off the arm, whack on a heavy bolter from Eddie that you've got left over from your Devastator squads and stuff, and then use the green stuff world's cable maker, and just whack a load of cables on.
Yeah, I've got some tracks from the Taurox kit, because I've converted my Taurox to have wheels.
Yes.
So that leaves me with a couple of tracks, 4 tracks that I've got no use or purpose for. So I could easily incorporate them into that, and they'd probably be about the right size.
Yeah, I mean they may be a fair size, but I still think they'd look really cool.
Yeah.
Thinking the size of a Taurox, if you then try to put a single miniature in between two, we'll give it a go and see what it looks like.
Yeah. Need to raid my bits box.
Yeah, if you don't fancy converting, Max Mini, I'll put these on as well. Do a set of models that could be used as the base plate for a servitor. So I'm going to put the links up for them as well. But they're really servitory. They're a proper mix of model and robot. So they're really cool. So if you didn't fancy converting at all, the Max Mini do a nice set. But again, I'll put the links up on there. The last one, I think, will take a lot of converting, because there's not really anywhere that I found that does a rig, an Arachne rig.
Yeah.
So I found a couple of things that could be used that were really cool. So someone from the House Van Saar Facebook group. So There's Facebook groups specifically for certain gangs, so you can hunt them ones out and just get purely just based on that gang. So someone in that used a Titanicus Imperial Knight, so the smaller version of the Imperial Knight, then cut out the front body of it, if you're with me, and then stuck the Vansar model in there. So they've taken the front of an Imperial Knight out and then put the body in, so it scales just about right. So the legs are slightly longer than the legs, so it's basically, it looks a bit like the Alien film where she's got into one of those rigs, which is essentially what it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
So the legs are slightly longer, the arms are slightly longer. I think it looks really cool. So if you're really brave, you can use one of the new Knight models and cut that out.
The other thing I guess that I would probably lean towards would be things like the Necron kits, where you've got some of they've got very sort of spidery type legs, not very spindly, but once again robotic. So how you would join and couple them together and somehow get a Vansar ganger within that is going to be the challenge.
Yeah, so a lot of people have used the kind of parts from a Necron model. Also, so I can't remember the name of the Triox Stalker and stuff like that, and the spiders and stuff. So there's also, if you wanted to go more steampunk, there's a company called Black Sun Miniatures. It's a 35mm model, so it kind of fits the size increase. It's a steam-powered armoured suit, which I thought would be pretty cool. So if you were going a bit less sci-fi and a bit more steampunky, that would be. It basically looks a bit like a Big Daddy from I can't remember the name of the computer game, a Bioshock.
I was thinking 80s wrestling.
I'm actually now just realised I'm younger. I'm going to pull the young person card. I don't know what you're on about, unfortunately.
Oh damn!
Sorry,
I'm
dude.
old.
And then I've got one more, which is it's a Malifaux rig and Cyberhounds. I'm just going to open it up now so I can explain it a bit better. It's slow.
I think I know the one you want. It's like an avatar model for one of the leaders. For the I've even forgotten the factions. It's been that long since I played.
That's the thing. It's not taking me.
It's Hoffman, so it's
That's
Guild.
Right.
C. Hoffman is one of the Guild sort of scientist guys. And then when he levels up to his avatar status, he's got a great big, because he's essentially a cripple. So in his normal guise, he's got calipers and robotic calipers that help him move around. But in his avatar status, he's got this great big assembly that basically cossets him and takes him in his arms and protects him.
That's it. So his feet are in the rig, and his arms, when they do something, he's got robotic arms attached to it that do the thing that he actions them to do. So it kind of slots in perfectly. So, I mean, essentially you'd have to buy. I mean, you can go on to. There is a Malifaux selling site on Facebook where you can request individual models, but it also comes with perfect sort of Cyberhound model, and then there's some other random bits that you could use. But if you wanted just a singular model, you can go onto eBay or go onto the Malifaux selling site and request just that model, and then someone will sell it to you.
I think the only issue you're going to have with the Malifaux stuff is that they are very slim and slender from a scale perspective. I think technically they're 32mm miniatures, but they are very slender. So you might have trouble fitting that in aesthetically with the rest of your gang, but it depends on what models you're using for the rest of your gang, doesn't it?
I mean, them being slender, they fall into the Vansar sort of style anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, like I say, I've not seen the model up close, but I do know what you mean because I've bought another Malifaux model in the past. They are very thin, but then at the same time, the Vansar are quite thin anyway. so hopefully it won't look too out. But it's always an option, and you might even have one at home, so you can have that little look yourself.
Yeah, I don't have that crew, so
not yourself.
I don't have him. I've got his arch nemesis, which is Ramos. He's the opposing sort of guy to him, and he's also into robotics and cyber stuff.
Okay.
So from his collection of robots and toys that he's got, I can certainly see lots of the other hangers-on being used, because I just haven't played Malifaux for probably 4 years now, and I'll keep passing by my models in the case and I'm thinking, well, do I repurpose these for another game? Because I'm just not likely to play it. Yeah, that's where I'm leaning at the moment.
It makes sense. Okay, and lastly then the Styx Shambler, which in my head I'm only seeing like I saw a Master Blaster model which I thought would be cool, but it appears that it was on a Kickstarter. I can't find any existing model for it that you can actually buy. So I was talking about like I was saying with you, using like a Gretchen gunner on top of a ogre, Ogryn, troll, and then just doing a head swap, just swapping the head of the shooter for a small model. So like just trying to think, like a halfling or anything along those lines, and then just swapping whatever the ogre is for a human head, or like it's got in the image, it's got like a guy with a face shield.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, these can be abhumans, can't they? According to the fluff, because although Cawdor would essentially be against abhumans as being an affront to the Emperor and everything else, it says in the fluff that if the leader deems them suitable, then the rest of the gang must accept the leader's sort of decision.
Yes.
So as long as they're hidden from view in the facial department, then you get away with it.
Yeah, so easily an orc model. I've seen a couple of options. So you've got an orc model carrying like a heavy shooter, which would fall into the heavy stubber sort of category, and then the little guy on top is just telling him what to do. You can have the orc or whatever model just being the platform and the character shooting, the little character shooting, but with the ability to just take their head off and replacing it with a hooded figure, like I say from Puppets War, or like you could even cut the head off the flamer guy from the cultist models who's wearing a mask.
Yeah.
It can be anything, and just the ability to cut off his head and then just make that human just by doing a head swap.
Another thing you could do is just for kicks, is you could actually flip it on its head as such and say that the little guy is the strong combat guy and the big guy is the gunner. So you'd have some big hulking model that has got a gun, and that's the one doing the shooting, and then you give some sort of counts as combat weapon to the little guy that's hanging on the back, and he's the one doing the fighting. Yeah, because obviously you just make the assumption that the little guy is the brains of the operation and the big guy is the dimwit, but that doesn't have to be the case, does it?
No, but I mean, just the potential for this is easy with the fact there's so many different models, especially if the big guy is just the carrier. Essentially, there's loads of things that carry clubs, so you've automatically got a model that's carrying the combat weapon straight away that it comes with.
Yeah.
And then all you've got to do is makeshift a little rig that can, so you can cut a rig like a weapons platform holder from any old vehicle that you're not using anymore. Any orc model that's got a heavy weapon that was attached to an old orc truck, now they've got the awesome models coming out. You can cut the buggy gun holder of that, somehow green stuff that to the body, and you've automatically got the weapons holder. You just whack a heavy stub on it.
Sounds so easy, I might do it this afternoon.
Hey. If you do, you can whack the picture up when we release the podcast. We are pretty much going to a steady release schedule, so around the 1st or 2nd of each month now, the podcast will be released. So we technically know when it's going out, which means that Michael will know when it's time to release a picture. I'll know when it's time to post all of the links.
Now, that's all dependent on how Dropbox is being big enough to put this file in today.
Well, I don't think we've never made a podcast that's too big for the monthly allowance. It just means that's why I do it a release schedule on the 1st or 2nd of each month, so that by the end of this month it will be brand new and fresh. So basically, as soon as the month is free, I whack it on. So yes, once Tony's edited this down, it won't. I don't think it will be an issue.
Well, it'll only be an issue for me to be able to save it in my Dropbox to be able to share it. That's it.
Oh yes, that's true. That's why. We'll stop it pretty quick. Yeah.
Let's wrap it up.
Have you got anything to talk about in games played? Because I don't. So I might jump that one.
The only thing I've got with games played is I did play a game of Kill Team with my gaming buddy and his young boy. That was like a freeway game, which went kind of well. And I've just got hobby stuff to do. I've just got stuff to do. I'm committing now to get these last 2 containers built. I'll get that done this weekend. I'll get them primed and the base colour done, and then I want to be able to finish off my crane, because I've still got that small section that didn't get primed because I ran out of primer. So I want to get that primed and then get the top half painted and get my containers done. That's my plan.
Cool.
See how that goes.
Okay, so we'll have a break now and go into the thank yous, and then that'll be the end. So quick break.
Okay.
And close. So thank you for Mike Thomas from Six Town Scenery again for the 3D terrain. That's pretty much all completed. Promethean Forge, thank you for the competition entry for the prize. So the competition is now ongoing, so keep it up. Last month I realised that with it, I essentially called it the Trevor Goddard part of the show. He actually released all of his stuff like 2 days after we recorded the last episode. So I'm going to talk about that stuff now. So where I didn't talk about Trevor last month, I'm going to talk about him this month. So he's done some terrain for the outer gate, so the bit that's coming in to where his awesome terrain is now. So he's done a whole outer gate where they do a caravan bit. He's created out of a Storm Talon, a Space Marine Storm Talon, an Enforcer Flyer support that's now got heavy stubbers where the assault cannons would be, and he's got webbers where the last cannons would be. So that's really cool. I wouldn't want to face that gang. Michael Green he just did a random video link to he's gone back to the Beast scenario where a couple of the gangs all got ripped apart last time, so they're going to go back. But he created a little video, like a little tips thing about where to shoot the beast, what weapon, what issues that they have. Like he's got limbs and bits and pieces. But I just thought it was really cool. Just to add a bit more lore to a scenario. And talking about models, Mark Grunding's Goliaths, they look awesome. They're on clear bases, but well, we'll let it go because the models are awesome. I don't know, I like clear bases because the fact that you don't have to muck about with terrain, and they technically match any way that you put them on, but it's the hobbyist in me, I struggle with it, but each to their own. They look awesome, the models are awesome, the painting's awesome. But that's it for me, Michael.
Yeah, I've got a couple of things that have sort of popped out and caught my eye.
Mm-hmm.
So these are going to have come from a variety of places, whether like Facebook groups and whatever else. So we've got a guy called Matthew Whips. He's done a Goliath Zerka recently, and that was essentially a cut and shut job between a Reaper miniatures called a clay golem. So it's a big muscly brute, and he's essentially put that torso and arms onto a pair of standard Goliath legs, and then he's done some work around the back with cables and other gubbins and bits and pieces. But that looks like a nice, straightforward conversion that a lot of people could attempt with just the aid of a razor saw. You know, you could kind of get 90% as good as what he's managed. But and then if you've got the skills to take it to the next level, then you can. Next up is a company, a painting, miniature building company, Quartermaster Miniature Building and Painting. Okay. They posted some pictures of a Gulka truck, you know, the old flat bed open sort of old school 80s 90s trucks for the Orcs, and they had a couple of gangers piloting that, and that looked really good. And that was just like the drivers were the original Orc driver and gunner torso, legs and arms, and they'd used the torsos, I think, from some Catachan fighters, and then the heads were some old Empire models, just to get the kind of scale right, because the Gulka stuff is obviously fairly small, because things were smaller back then. And that looked really good, and I've got about 5 of those in a box somewhere in the garage, so I'm tempted to dust those off and snap off the Orc heads, and away I go. Next up, this is going to be a real abuse of the name, but I think it's Evan Stoke Halvorsen. So he's perhaps not from Blighty, and he has constructed some scenery pieces. So he's done like some toxic waste vats, which are like 2 round vats that have got some green bubbling liquid sort of oozing out of them, and they look really cool. And that ties in with what we was talking last week with those Delta 7 tiles, because you've got that sludge farm type thing. They could work perfectly well for that. Whether that's what his original intention was, or whether he just wanted to build a cool piece of terrain, I don't know. But the end result is excellent. He's got sort of a slimy looking sheen to the liquid fluid that's inside it, and it looks utterly revolting. You don't want to go inside it.
No.
And then finally, the last thing, which is pertinent to this show, is a person called Cam Erasmus, and he's done a Vansar Rachna rig conversion, and that looks really cool. So he's got like the Vansar model in there, and it does look like Necron parts from what I can tell.
I've seen that one. That looks really cool.
And that just looks really good, and that's exactly how I'll sort of envisage or what from the description. You know, it just looks good. And we'll post the pictures of these, so our really poor descriptions of what we're looking at might match up with what you look at.
Yeah, so that's your job for that one, Michael.
Yeah, I'll post the links, and we'll go from there. But I think that's it, Tom.
Awesome. So you've managed to keep up with just the 2 of us today.
We thought this was going to be a short show.
Yeah, next episode we're doubling up, so there's going to be 4 of us next time, and that will be our yearly one. And that will be where we speak about the winner of the podcast, of the competition, and it will allow us. Oh, one more thing. If you have any questions, because it's a year episode, I thought we'd do something a bit different. And if you have any questions you want to ask all 4 of us, you can email that to chronicles@theunderhive@gmail.com, the same as the competition. If you're going to do a competition entry, please write competition entry in the title. If it's just a question for the podcast, just write question for the podcast, and it means I can separate the 2 emails out. If you have any questions, doesn't have to be Necromunda related. Ideally, please don't make them rules related. Tony would probably be able to answer it, but I just know rules questions just cause a bit of kerfuffle on Facebook pages and stuff. So ideally, not rules related, and not digging out Games Workshop related. So, but they can be anything. So if it was what was our ideal day, including like our walk in the park and skipping along, just if you want to ask us a question, please feel free and ask us a question.
I'll put a request.
Yes.
I'll put a request in for the next show. Can we not do a year in review?
No, don't worry.
Good. That's good, because I can't remember what I had for breakfast, let alone what I did this time last year.
Yeah, So no, don't worry, we won't do that. We're gonna talk more about some of the Cawdor stuff. There's loads of stuff we haven't done. Psychic powers, bionics.
Yeah, there's still loads to talk about.
Yeah, so it would only be a tiny segment. So if you have any questions, I'll write it in. If we don't, we don't. So keep up your competition entries. Have a good month, and we'll speak to you all next month. Hopefully Aaron will be there if he can get off the floor after all the baby oil. He's still sliding along the floor right now. So if he can get up, then fingers crossed he'll be there next month. Personal message him and just say, please Aaron, come. Make him feel really guilty. That'd be great. Alright everyone, have a good time. Bye.
Bye now. Bye.
And that was the end of Chronicles from the Underhive, a Necromunda and Post Apocalyptic podcast. We hope you enjoyed it. All the things we talk about in this podcast can be found at the Chronicles from the Underhive Facebook group, where we'll post up links to all of the websites we discussed and the current projects we're working on. Come and join us and post up your Necromunda projects. We hope to see you there, and may you never roll a double on your gambling den.